I'm going to call to order the July 22nd, 2025 school board meeting for ISD 194. It is 6 p.m. Everyone please stand with me to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll do roll call starting with my farthest on my right.
Amber Cameron.
Brett Nicholson.
Paul Carbone.
I'm Matt Swanson.
Emily McDonald.
Carly Anderson.
Brian Thompson.
All right, any modifications or additions to the agenda? All right.
Oh,
If the,
sorry, it was too slow on my button. Can I make a motion to remove number 5B from the agenda, just to allow more time to revise the policy before coming for a first reading?
is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion, there being a first and a second? Director Thompson?
I think we should keep it on the agenda so that we can have a conversation with the rest of the board and get their point of view. It is a state statute with the recommendations that they have on 620. But again, it is just a first reading and not a whole lot of changes on the content is really done, other than what number do we want to allocate to get a few things. And it might be good to get some feedback from the board members if we need to bring it back and make revisions versus just bringing it back.
So you're saying just you would like to make the rest of the board aware of what the issue is before we have
I think it
further
would be good to
discussions?
hear what the rest of the board's point of view is, and if there is a desire to send it back, then we can, but I think it would make sense to bring them up to speed.
Director Cameron?
I think that's fine to have a conversation about it. Director Thompson, I think my only concern is that I don't feel like we've, it appears we haven't consulted like the content experts and how the revisions in the policy would affect both this next academic year, but in general. And so I know we've heard from all of our secondary principals that they're highly concerned with our first draft reading. And so I want to make opportunity for conversation with content experts, not just the board.
Any other discussion? Director Anderson?
I would just add that I think it would be helpful to, prior to us having a first reading, which feels like a more formal presentation, not that we can't make updates, but if there are pretty significant updates, it would be better, in my mind, to consult before a first reading comes to the broader board. I think the board is generally, or we all received the email about this, so.
Mm-hmm. Director Thompson?
So this policy was, I believe, reviewed last year, and it was approved. There isn't significant content changes. There is a number allocation that needs to be discussed and reviewed as a board. And so, again, maybe to bring it up to the rest of the board members, you've got advanced placement courses. You get a 1.2 multiplied factor.
Do you want to reserve that for
Well,
discussion?
I mean, I don't know if this will help other board members to decide if you want to have this conversation or not, but my recommendation is to move it forward so that we can have dialogue and get your point of view before, if there's anything else that needs to be done. There isn't significant content changes. There is a numerical allocation change but that might have some ramifications downstream that we don't know yet. And those are things that we can discuss at the following meeting, but an allocation might be worth getting your point of view as if we need to move it forward, to a committee discussion.
Or even bring back some of those content experts?
Correct.
For
Yes.
questions with the
Yep.
board? All right, any other discussion? All right, the vote is being first by Director Cameron, second by Director Anderson to remove 6B from the reports discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nope.
No.
No. All right, remains. Any other revisions or additions to the agenda? If there are none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as drafted.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, there's a first by Director Carbone. Is there a second? I'll second it. Being a first and a second, all those in favor of approval of the agenda as drafted, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, it is approved. Assistant Superintendent, we'll move on to you for the good news.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chair Swanson. I'm really excited to share a brief piece of good news with you all this evening, talking about how our Cougars have earned some national and state honors in our clay target competitions. Many may not know that we have that activity at Lakeville South High School, so we want to say a big congratulations to the Lakeville South Clay Target team for placing 7th in the nation at the USA High School Clay Target League National Championships. They were held on July 11th through the 13th in Mason, Michigan. The Cougars delivered an absolutely standout performance throughout that tournament, including near-perfect scores of 99 out of 100 by our senior Mitchell Kelvey and our junior Wyatt Bonnerup. They went to the individual finals as well. Earlier this season, the team also excelled as a group at the 2025 Minnesota State High School League State Championship, which occurred on June 20th. In the individual competition, Kelvey shot a perfect 100, which is incredible, tying the top spot in the state of Minnesota. The Cougars placed 3rd overall in the team competition. And certainly, if you want to read more amazing things that are happening in our district, you can go to isd194.org/news. Thank you.
Give a hand for Mitchell and Wyatt. And just so we're clear, I mean, that's 99 out of 100 clays that are tossed up they're hitting, and 100 for the state tournament. That's
It's
impressive.
amazing.
Yeah. All right, on to there is no public comment today. No one signed up. Consideration for approval of the consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? Director Thompson?
I'd like to pull out Schedule C, coaches and advisors.
When you say Schedule C,
Yeah,
you're talking
that
about
is
4B.
part of
4B.
4B, but
Okay.
that's a subsection of 4B. So
Okay.
I don't know if you want to pull out all of B or just that part. Is up to you guys.
We'll just pull 4B and then you can chat about it. Anything else? All right, with the exception of 4B, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
All right, there's a motion by Director Carbone. Is there a second? Seconded by Director Nicholson. There being a first and a second, motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 4B. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it is approved. Director Thompson.
Yeah, so, I want to talk about the Schedule C, which is the coaches that are being recommended to be hired for this upcoming school year. And so let me go ahead and find my notes, apologize. And so we do this 3 times a year for fall, winter, spring, and we hire a variety of different coaches and for all of our sports as well as co-curricular activities. And over the past 3 years of being on the board, I get emails and I get text messages of like, hey, I like this coach, I don't like this coach, XYZ. I like this program, I don't like this program, and so forth. And so one of the things that I think is super interesting not interesting, but there doesn't seem to be a mechanism for how we validate the coaching and the advisors that we have for these co-curricular activities. And when parents are investing roughly $300 in registration fees, and if they happen to be in let's say varsity sports, there are booster fees, there are bond fees and tryout fees. I mean, a parent is investing almost close to $700 or $1,000 just to participate in these sports. But yet, from what I'm hearing, is that there is a lack of parental input, a lack of parental survey or feedback loop to validate, is the program being is a program helping my student perform, helping my student get better, is a good team culture, is a whatever it may be. And so the feedback that I've heard and that I've received doesn't have that structure in place. And so what I realized is that for these state statutes is that if a coach is or an advisor or whoever it may be is maybe time to course correct or pivot, you have to make that change within 60 days when a program activity ends. And so it's something that you can't wait until the end of the year or at the end of the school year. And so all of these individuals that are being recommended are being recommended by the district, which is fine, but there is no there isn't a parent feedback loop in some programs, and maybe there are in others, but there's no consistency. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to add a motion here for the approval of this to ensure that, let me go ahead and get this. I'd like to make a motion that we establish a formal process for collecting and reviewing a structured feedback from both student participants and their parents or guardians for all district-sponsored activities or core curricular activities that include both fall, winter, and spring. And with that feedback, it gets brought back to the administration, and then the data is then shared with the school board around, okay, here's how our programs are going, here's the coach evaluations for us to validate coach retention, reassignment, and or removal. So that is my recommendation. That's the motion that I'd like to make as part of hiring over 150 coaches and co-curricular advisors.
Brian, can you restate that, just so I'm clear?
So I am making a motion that we establish a formal process for collecting and reviewing structured feedback from both student participants and their parents for all district-sponsored activities. Now, there's more detail, but I will defer to the administration to figure out what threshold is reasonable. For example, do you want 51% of student participants to reply back so that you've got a valid data set, or is 10% efficient or enough? But the bottom line is that we need a structure in place, because if there's anything that can or will need to be done, has to be done within a 60-day window after the program activity concludes.
Is there a second to the motion?
I would rather see us, I don't want to second it because I feel like this deserves more conversation, just with Brenda and others who would implement such a system. So, like, I feel like we can't discuss it unless we have a second.
I mean, if there's no second, going once, going twice, all right, then the motion fails. I will say I'm not opposed to bringing that issue up. I guess my question would be, what currently exists right now? You know, how do you make sure it's consistent across all sports?
There isn't any.
Okay.
Well, not just sports. I mean, we're talking about all district activities.
District
And so
activities, yeah.
I think what you're suggesting is great. I just think we don't have, it would be great for us to look into this, to understand what other districts are doing, to know what Brenda's thoughts or Director Albrecht's thoughts might be.
Which is fine, and again, they can come forward with those things, but I think as a board, as a district, I mean, there's minimal, or there are some programs that have minimal parental input, minimal student input, and so there's no voice in that. And so if they want to come back at another meeting and share, here's what other districts are doing, this is how we're going to implement the survey, this is to validate as a board, yes, we want parent and student participation feedback. Either it's not a very complicated request. Either we have it or we don't.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, Brian.
Director, hold on. Director
My
Cameron.
apologies.
I'd like to make a motion to add a discussion about parent and athlete feedback for a future board meeting.
I'll second that.
I mean, technically, that motion would be improper. I mean, to add something to a future meeting at this point.
Or I make a recommendation that we could discuss this at a future meeting.
I mean, I can make a promise that I can put it on for a future meeting. How about that?
Great.
I just don't
but,
think we need to discuss it at length right now.
Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, in order to amend even our current agenda, we'd have to go back and undo that. But no, I do agree that it's worthwhile having that discussion and making sure that we do have something. It could even be part of an HR initiative, though maybe we have plenty of other things to discuss tonight on that. So we're back to 4B. Any further discussion on 4B? If there's none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the employment recommendation, leave requests, and resignations under 4B. Motion?
I'll second it.
All right, being moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Carbone. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda item 4B for the employment recommendations, leave requests, and resignations, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I oppose. Nay.
All right. And they are approved. On to the reports. Summer programming update. I'm going to ask up Janet McBride and Margaret Gare.
Okay, well.
There we go.
Oh, went back. There we go. Thank you for having us here this evening. I'm Margaret Gare. I'm the principal of Alternative Programs. This is Janet McBride. She is the Alternative Programs Coordinator. We're here to give you some of our highlights for summer this year, which is currently in session. Most people think summer is a slow time of the year for educators, but for alternative educators, we're moving at full speed. Lakeville Area Schools has a SAP, which is a school year approved program, alternative program. And as such, we can have year-round school. We have to have year-round school. That's part of our statute. This allows us to do out-of-school programming time to support our students in academic need. Our agenda for this evening is why summer learning, how is it possible, our program schedule, and the highlight of 3 of our academic programs, targeted services, credit recovery, and our online tuition-based program, and our school year goals. Why summer learning? This provides a system of supports for the whole child, gives us access to tiered instruction and support, and it creates schools and classrooms that are safe and welcoming. We reteach and pre-teach specific skills for our students in grades 1 through 8. Hayden, we have a summer learning video that's 2 minutes to give you an idea of a structure and why we support our summer learning. We don't have sound, Hayden. I'd sing and dance for you,
Let's
but
look
that
at
would be
two
bad.
children, one from a middle-income family, the other from one of the millions of low-income American families. As the 2 kids head off to kindergarten, look what happens. The middle-income child starts out with a 6-month lead. The low-income child is already falling behind because of a lack of access to early reading and preschool education. During their year in kindergarten, in the same school and classroom, the 2 children will learn at about the same rate, so we'll move them both forward 9 months. But look what happens in that first summer between kindergarten and 1st grade. Our middle-income child moves ahead about a month in reading because learning of one kind or another continues over the summer. The low-income child falls back about 2 months. So when school begins again, when they go back for 1st grade, the gap between them has already widened. During 1st grade, again, they move ahead at about the same rate, another 9 months. That next summer, the activities and lifestyle of the middle-income family keep that child moving forward, but the low-income child has fewer opportunities to reinforce good habits like reading, and that child falls farther behind. Then we come to 2nd grade, and again, our 2 children learn at the same rate. But the summer after 2nd grade sets our low-income child back again. and our middle-income child moves forward again, and the gap widens again. By just the third grade, the two children are already far apart. By the end of fifth grade, the gap between the children is 2.5 to 3 years. It will keep growing through middle school. So you see, without addressing what's happening during the summer, it is impossible to ever catch up. It's impossible to close the gap. No matter how much high-quality learning goes on from September to June, every year the gap widens.
As you can see, summer learning is incredibly important for our students. Though they talk about low-income families, these are for families that are even our working families that don't have the time in the summer to provide those extra learning opportunities. How is it possible? Because we have a SAP with our state-approved Pathways program is our SAP program, we can provide some state funding for our targeted services and credit recovery programs. Our students qualify under the Minnesota State statute for graduation incentives, and we report all of our learning with attendance and membership and what we are doing for our targeted services so that we can hopefully break even and pay for our summer schools.
Okay, so one of the things I am going to challenge you after we leave here today, to take a couple minutes and go back to the slideshow. All the pictures in the slideshow are from our current summer programming. And it's just a really small snapshot of the really incredible things that are going on in our buildings. So our programming schedule is taking place in the mornings of June and July. We will be closing out next week at July 31st. Our days of the week and the length of the day depends on their age of the child. We do developmentally appropriate for our students. And then, of course, we have to take into account our families, so we do not have any programming on Fridays to allow our families the long weekends for summer plans. The three programs that we are going to talk about tonight are targeted services, credit recovery, and online, our remote learning. So this is just a snapshot of them, and I'm going to go into depth on each one of them. So our first program is our largest program. It's our targeted services program. It is an invite-only program. We qualify students based on their FastBridge screener scores in the winter and spring. So for this year, we use 2025 scores. And then we also go back to the teachers and get some input about their level of independence and their ability to work in a small group station rotation setting. The numbers that you see at the top are our numbers coming right out of COVID. So we had our highest numbers coming right out of COVID. And then you can see on the bottom one is our current numbers, and we've almost reached our coming out of COVID numbers. We are packed this year. We are out of space. We're out of staff. So this year we're running about 454 for our 1st through 8. And right now we are at 4 elementaries and 1 middle school. And then our second program that we're currently running is our credit recovery. Credit recovery is for our students at our 3 high schools, well, actually our 4 high schools, including Pathways and our online program, that have failed a core class during the school year, and they are making a choice to come during the summer and recover that class to stay on pace for graduation. This slide is a little bit misleading because we have 173 students enrolled, but as of this morning, we have recovered 194 credits this summer. So that's a big celebration. And last summer, we recovered 217. So
Still a week and a half.
yeah, we still have a week and a half left to go. We don't have this system down yet.
Yeah. This one's a quick one. We have one online tuition-based program that we run. We do have health and phy ed, and then we charge a tuition to our students to take this. This is usually students who are trying to keep foreign language and Phi-Ed, or those classes, foreign language, band, music, in their schedule. So they come in the summertime and make these classes up. We usually fill them. We have a capacity of 40 per group, and we're at 77 this year and not the full 80. And as you can see by our numbers, it stays pretty consistent. I think you're up again. Am I? All right, funding. Another way to, is this possible? These are approximates because alternative programming is about 18 months behind as it's received through the district. It's just a little bit different funding than the straight up ADM mechanisms. So you can see kind of our revenue and our expenses in the 3 program areas. Our goal is always to break even. I will tell you, I've been doing this for 35, 36 years. These numbers look really good. I mean, we are very conscious about our expenses and how we do this and our capacity to serve our students.
All right, and as we close out our summer, we're always looking ahead. What do we want to do with what's come out of the summer and move it into our school year? So at the end of all of our programming, we will gather feedback from our staff and families, and we use that not only to improve for next summer, but our current school year programming as well. And then we look at our summer attendance rates. So our students that did come, what percentage of the days did they come, and what impact did that have on their fall FastBridge score? And then how did that continue in the winter and the spring? And then what does that look like for next summer? Are we seeing the same students, or are we seeing different students? And then for targeted services for the school year, targeted services moves back to the 9 elementaries. So it is taught by our home teachers at that time. And I collaborate with our principals and our learning specialists at that time to identify the students that would continue on. And it might be different students during the school year. And then credit recovery is the same thing. That goes back to the home buildings. I run a program at Lakeville North, Lakeville South, and then our online students have the opportunity to go to North or South to whatever best works for them. And then a couple bigger goals that we have for next year is one of the things that we want to continue is our partnership with Lakeville South and Lakeville North. And what does that look like for early interventions for our at-risk students? And that's mainly on the credit recovery field. So we do monthly meetings with our counselors at both North and South, and we talk about our at-risk students, and we want to expand that to be involved in their intervention support teams. And then we, as a group, also alternative programs, we do a once-a-month meeting to more look at the processes and the procedures. And then, as I stated before, we continue our partnership with the elementary. And one of our other goals is we do have middle school programming during the school year, but we want to really continue to grow that. Okay, look at those cuties.
As you can see by the highlights here, you're not seeing any technology in these pictures. For our grades 1 through 8, we have purposely not had their iPads as access for the students, and we have gone to hands-on and station rotations for the students. We are finding a lot of engagement. We're finding excellent SEL's goals being met. And so far this year in credit recovery, we've also had 6 graduates. They have come back and completed their diploma and finished this summer. All right, we can't do this all without staff. Over in the left-hand corner, you'll see the kind of navy blue color. Those are all of our high school teachers and staff that are supporting. Right now, at the time of this slide was made, it was 170 students. We are probably up to 176 because we do bring them in as they finish. We bring in a new student to try and get as many as possible. The red are our 2 online teachers, and currently those 2 teachers are providing service for 77 students.
And then for our targeted services this year, we have 41 staff members of license and support staff. And I just have to share, I just received an email right before the board meeting from a parent that said, Thank you to all the teachers who dedicate their time and summer vacation to support our students who need a little extra help. And I personally, coming from the elementary world, I cannot give a shout out to all these staff for what they have done this summer. It's just been, it's really a celebration.
And those teachers, what do we have, 41 there?
Yep.
Are providing service for 454 students in our different sites.
We have developed some partnerships over the years. One of the big ones that we use, we partner with Open Door out of Egan. They provide mobile lunches in our neighborhoods, and then for our programming students, they provide snacks for in-school programming.
We also have partnerships within our district. We have community education, ECFE, and special ed.
Yep.
So all of those are running programs in our buildings at the same time we are, so we have to work together and share our spaces.
And this is where we are at this summer. Our top ones are 4 elementaries, and then we have 1 program at the middle school. Our credit recovery this year is at Lakeville South. And I think I invited all of you. You can come check us out tomorrow at JFK and Highview on Thursday. And if another one works better, we'll be there till next Thursday.
So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share with what we've been doing this summer, and we'll do it again next summer.
Any questions? Director Thompson.
Hey, this is fantastic. Thank you for doing this. I've had the opportunity to participate in some of these programs, and well, not me, but my family has, so I appreciate that. The online health and physical education, I think that's super fascinating. You've got over 80 kids that are doing this separately, willing to pay money out of their pocket to do these summer programs because they can't bake it into their normal school day. And because we've got 6 periods in high school, which if we had 7, this might give them an opportunity to embed that into that respective school year and not have to give up band or give up engineering or drama or whatever it may be. And so, again, we've talked about this before about trying to have 7 periods in high school, but that's just an observation that I saw. The second thing that I saw was the below reading proficiency. The video that you shared was the low income student or the student not as far ahead. They're not where they need to be, but then the middle income is maybe further ahead. Is our baseline of reading and math proficiency at the end of 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, not at the middle income level, but at the lower, at the baseline? So have we increased the bar for our district, saying we want your reading and we want your math levels to be at a higher level, and so we are bringing those kids in further to our program so that we can get them caught up? Or are we, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining this right. But
We're
go ahead.
trying to fill the gap.
Yep.
That's kind of what you're asking is, yes, so that providing that extra in the summertime gives them those learning experiences that they may not have for that extra learning piece. So,
But is that gap above and beyond what our standard is for kindergarten and 1st grade and 2nd and 3rd grade? You know what I mean? Just because other students may be further ahead, but at the end of 1st grade, we want people at this level. Are they at that level, but we're asking them to come in because everyone else is at a higher level?
no.
Okay.
We're using this level, and if they're below this level,
Perfect.
then we're bringing them in for that.
So we use our FastBridge scores, and when I pull those scores, I'm looking at some risk and high risk.
Perfect. The yellow, well, there's
Yep.
a
Yep.
dashboard
Yep.
that we see that's kind of the yellow and the red. Okay.
Yep.
And then, so my last question is that when you showed the revenue screen, we are above break even on all 3 programs, which is,
Maybe.
Those are approximates.
okay.
Because of the lag time, and some of it, the way the funding mechanism works, it doesn't calculate out the same way as a general ed student that starts here and starts there.
And it is based on attendance.
And membership.
And membership. So it will, like, when I did the targeted services and the credit recovery, I went on, everyone's attending every day, the whole day. And we know that that isn't true, but I won't have those final numbers until time has passed.
Do you have previous records or previous years that have shown you have broken even, or you've made a net positive revenue? on that?
Targeted services and credit recovery are pretty even.
Our goal is break even.
Break even. Okay.
Bill's looking at it. He's like,
Got it.
We've had, yeah, I've spent a lot of time in Bill's office.
yeah.
Okay. Which is
We're
fine.
Very break even.
I was looking at the financial side,
Yeah.
and I was just wondering, all right, if there's extra revenue there, what are you doing with that? And can we refunnel that back into your program to accelerate it, to expand it, to make sure that for any parent or student who wants to engage in accelerating their reading and math over the summer, we have that flexibility?
I can answer some of that. It is earmarked money, so the targeted services money, the grades 1 through 8, can only be funneled back into that. I can't use it for the high school piece. The high school piece, I actually can use some of that funding for targeted services if I needed it. And all of that money, only 10% can go back for administrative funds and that type of thing that they use for district office funds.
Good.
I'm good.
I had a question on the growth. So you look at the spring Fast Bridge, then
Yeah.
you look at the October Fast Bridge in comparison. I mean, what kind of growth are you seeing, or is it just even maintaining
You know what?
throughout the summer?
So I would say our goal is to maintain and not to take the summer slide.
Sure.
I also, we want to dive into that more and look at how does attendance factoring in? Because not everyone attends every day. And we notice, like I've noticed, like this week, we're kind of hitting that runway where we're seeing a few more absences. So stay tuned. But yeah, that is something we definitely want to see what correlation that is. And what does that look like in the winter and spring?
Sure. Director Cameron?
I have two questions. The first is both related to targeted services, but also credit recovery. We see the numbers, especially for credit recovery, increasing, right? And I'm married to someone who runs credit recovery, so I feel like I know a little bit about this. But I know part of it is about marketing and making sure kids who need this are finding the opportunity and enrolling and coming, right?
Yep.
How, with our numbers going up as they are we seeing an increased need? Are we seeing better marketing? Are we seeing a combination of both? Like, why are our numbers going up?
Yes.
All of the above.
Okay.
One of the things that I feel we have done a great job on is our platform that we are using for recovery. We have more capacity to take more students. And yes, with Margaret and myself, we go to the high schools a lot, and we're really involved in the high schools to see how we can catch them earlier to get them back on track for graduation.
Great.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's helpful. And are we having to turn any students away right now who would qualify in either targeted or credit recovery?
In credit recovery, we run a waiting list.
Okay.
So we don't turn them away, we put it on there. It sounds bad, but we triage. We start with seniors first. That's our priority going into their senior year so that we can make sure they're on track for graduation. And we work our way backwards. But we have a rolling enrollment all summer. So if I have a student that only had one class and he finished it, I can move somebody in right away. We look at their grade percentages. We do a deep dive into every individual student's grade books to take a look on how we can customize it for them.
And then my other question, and this is not summer, I don't believe, but it could be, and that is, I feel like I've heard from some administrators that targeted services funding is getting decreased for next academic year. Is that happening? And if so, how are we mitigating that?
So it's not decreased.
No.
It
Okay.
hasn't changed in probably 25 years from the
25,
state.
I think it was.
But what has changed is what we pay our teachers and our overall costs running through the district. So as our teacher pay rates have gone up, we've had stagnant funding from the state. So it makes it a little bit harder to make that balance of break even.
Got it. Okay. Last thing I'll say is last night I was at a Dakota County Extension meeting and we were talking about the programming that they do, especially with credit recovery and targeted services. And they mentioned that I think starting next year, they're going to be working with Lakeville schools in some capacity. So I don't know if that's you or someone else, but I was excited to hear that we'll have increased support from other partners.
We try to partner with as many people as we can. And even our own teachers have a lot of expertise, especially at that elementary level, so, yeah.
Director Anderson.
Sorry, just want to follow up on Emer's question. So is the limited funding why we're not able to take more people into the credit recovery? Is there a way for us to?
It's one of the things. And then the capacity of teachers, how many teachers can we get to come in? So right now, if you noticed, I think I had 6 on there, and they aren't all full-time. So they split, some of them split the summer, and they'll do the first 3 weeks, and the other one will do the other 3 weeks, so they have their break time too. Could we grow it? Having the staff is kind of one of the key components. With our new platform, that has built the capacity that way, so they don't have all the extra prep time, they don't have to correct every packet, we don't have to photocopy things and do all of that with our electronic format.
Well, it might be helpful for us to see what that wait list looks like, just because if it's something you're addressing in a briefer amount of time versus this is an ongoing problem, then how do we kind of allocate more funding?
And we do address that same list all throughout the school year, because we run credit recovery after school during the school year.
But if we get funded for that, right? I mean, if there's funding for that, it's just, I want to say it's just as simple as like, you could add more teachers, right?
We have
That
to
are
get 'em.
dedicated.
They have to volunteer to do
Yeah.
it, you know?
Yeah.
So like my targeted services staff, I hired every support staff and every licensed staff that applied in our district. Would we have loved to take more? But it's also a capacity, like at the elementary, we're in every nook and cranny of an open building right now.
And with the facilities working the way they are, they have to go offline certain years, so we can't use those buildings.
With the credit recovery, we had a lot of like math classes that were all top failed classes for us, I think was reported earlier. So are we doing a lot of math, or what's kind of the breakdown in terms of credit recovery for high school kids?
Well, we focus on the core, so of course our math, science, English, and social studies. I would say Algebra 2, chemistry. We're seeing an uptick in earth, space, science. It's a brand-new curriculum. They're brand new to high school, so you're going to see a little bit of change there with kids struggling in that one. But that's implementation, and the next year I assume it'll be better because it's so brand new. But I would tell you, you're right, those are the hardcore courses.
Do you know roughly what the distribution of students are for credit recovery between the grades, 9 through 12?
Well, yes. Our 9th grade this year, we had, at the 2 high schools, almost 100 students fail at least one core class. And then that number decreases as we get to our senior year. I don't have those off the top of my head. But I would also say, Matt, those are a little bit misleading because we've triaged all year long to get to the summer. Our goal is to be able to get more sophomores and juniors in our programs now this upcoming school year, so we can take some weight off of that summer.
Director Thompson.
Can we go back to the financial component of this? Like, does the teacher volunteer, or do they get paid a stipend, or like how do they help me understand how are we generating revenue for this again?
We post the position according to our HR guidelines, and then we do interview.
Yep.
So it's a full-time FTE.
Nope,
I'm
it's
sorry.
hourly pay rate,
Hourly.
which is also, their hourly pay rate is guided by the contract.
Got it. Okay. But if we had a scenario where we hired dedicated teachers that focused in this space, can you break even in this model, or I'm just wondering if you hired teachers. I mean, let me rephrase it. Not because we have teachers, but if you hired full-time resources, knowing that the volume is there, and knowing that it's a break-even model right now, but I don't know if the model would still be break-even with paying them full-time.
I'd be hesitant to give you a real answer to
Yeah.
that. What I can tell you also is we're also dealing with at-risk kids, because just because their name is on a list doesn't mean they're going to show up. Sure. So that's the other thing with that.
Thank you both for coming in.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, policy report. Brian, do you want to briefly lay out the issue for everyone so we have an understanding, and if any of the other board members have questions they want us to take back to the committee and experts before we come back?
So policy 620 is the learning credit policy. This is where we allocate, how many credits or a GPA is worth for non-standard classes. And so that would include AP classes, concurrent classes, PSEO classes, XYZ. I believe the current state that we are in today is that if you take an AP class in high school, you get a multiplier factor of 1.2. So if you get an A in an AP English class, instead of it being worth 4.0 credits, it's worth 5.0 credits. And so we've got, our district offers a variety of different programs. We've got a couple of chemistry concurrent classes. We also have students that are taking PSEO classes, but none of them are weighted the same as AP classes. Right now, I believe in our school district, only AP classes are weighted. There is a new state statute that got passed that said that a school board must adopt a policy regarding weighted grade point averages, and it has to be, a school board must adopt an identical policy regarding weighted grade point averages for credits earned via PSEO or post-secondary coursework, as it gives to credits earned via concurrent enrollment coursework. And so I guess I wanted to bring this up just to get the board's point of view, where if you take an AP class, which is supposed to be college focused or college, content, and you're getting an extra weighted GPA for that, if you've got a student who's taking a PSCO class or a concurrent chemistry class, should that be weighted as well, the same? So that's the issue. There are a lot of other mechanics involved in how and when this gets implemented, but from a board's point of view, if a student takes a PSCO English class at Normandale or wherever, they don't get that weighted benefit, whereas a student who takes a AP class in high school, which is a college English class, let's say, then they get the weighted benefit, meaning that they get the 5.0 if they get an A in that class. So I'll pause here.
Emily, do you know concurrent enrollment, is that on the normal grading, weighted grading scale?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Because the statute, says whatever we do for concurrent enrollment, we have to do that for post-secondary. So just for the rest of the board. So if we're going to shift post-secondary, not post-secondary, post-secondary, we'd have to do the same for any concurrent enrollment courses that we have here.
And I apologize, is concurrent weighted or is it not weighted? It is not weighted. So if you're taking a college level chemistry class, it's not weighted. But if you take an AP placement, an AP college chemistry class, it is weighted.
So then the question is, what we can discover, and we'll discuss it more with the principals, do we weight at all? What do we weight? Director Carbone?
Well, that's what I was just going to ask Brian. Everything should be, anything that is relevant for college or extra relevant for college should be weighted. I think that's what you were asking, and Matt, you just said the same thing.
I think as a board, and I'd love to get everyone's point of view, like if you're going to take a college class, and if we are going to give it an extra credit, then does it matter if you're taking a college class via AP or via concurrent or via PSEO? An English at college is an English at college, I would assume. Now, some colleges may have varying degrees and rigorous content or whatever it may be, but if they're accredited in their respective subject, I don't know why one person gets it and why one would not if those credits are still transferable at the collegiate level.
That makes sense, but do colleges and universities look at it that way? Do they put more weight on AP classes versus a college chemistry class? Wouldn't that be part of the? Go ahead, Emily.
Thank you for that question. We, when this statute came to be, we did some preliminary research. The principals led that work along with Elida to really take a look at, first of all, what other districts were doing, as well as what colleges do and how they look at GPA, because certainly our goal is never to harm students.
Right.
And I know that you plan on talking more with the principal, and they certainly can provide you with more depth and nuance around this. But what we did find is our intent was to reach out to the top 10 colleges that our students attend to ask them about how they approach it, because all schools do it a little bit differently. And so you don't, obviously, we wouldn't want our kids to be penalized because this school is waiting and this school is not waiting. So we just wanted to gather some information. And again, the principals can provide you some more specifics on that. But at my last count, we had heard back from 6 of our top 10 schools, and 5 of those colleges reported to us that they actually strip away the weighted and they look at it on a 4-point scale, because when they're looking student to student to student, they need a consistent metric across all the students that apply. And so that's what we learned, which wasn't interesting. And then on the 6th one that replied, I believe what they commented was that at times they will look at a weighted, but they prefer to look at it from an unweighted standpoint. So that's sort of where the conversation started. And so I think from a day-to-day standpoint and from a kid's experience standpoint, I think that's where the principals can really weigh in with some more depth around the implications of either we're doing it or we're not doing it. And so then what does that mean for our students and for our system moving forward?
Sure. Director Cameron?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think this warrants discussion for sure about, I think you make a good point, Director Thompson, that if you're taking a college level course content, that maybe they should all be treated the same way in terms of our GPA. I know I apologize that I had to miss this policy meeting where this was discussed. I do think I'd like to make a recommendation that for policies that involve content that we are not the experts, I know I'm saying the same thing as I said earlier. I think it's really important that we bring in those content experts at the beginning. We have a perspective, of course, that I think can interrogate the policies and ask good questions. But I think without that on-the-ground experience to answer in the moment, I'm uncomfortable putting forward first drafts without. I think we just need to be in better alignment with our district administration before we edit policies, because I think the secondary administrators brought up a lot of good points that we should consider. I think one is what Dr. McDonald just spoke of, like, should we even have weighted grades? I know I work at a university and we unweight. But to your question, Director Carbone, I believe many higher ed institutions look at students' transcripts. So if they're taking AP, they're seeing that they're taking AP, even though they unweight. And then, of course, if they take the test, then that comes into the equation too, in terms of AP tests. But I also think something that was brought up that I was not aware of is that we have a number of students who are enrolling in PSEO who are failing. So they're not getting credit, they're not progressing in their high school experience with Lakeville schools, and we're paying additional money. And so I think that is something that we need to think about, and I think that's a whole issue. But I think part of the conversation is if PSEO is given more credit or a higher credit, then will we see an influx and perpetuate the cost to our district and having more students failing at the secondary level without the support?
Director Nicholson?
What's the advantage to the weighting? Like, why do we do it now? Like, you're weighting the grades and it's, okay, you're in an AP class versus a PSEO versus whatever. So what?
It's the risk, I'm assuming. You're taking a risk of taking a harder class
I
in the
understand
general
that,
course.
but you're also taking the opportunity to get college credit. So we're getting kind of double the benefit, right? I'm kind of asking the question, like, where did weighting come up in the history of grading? Like, Did we, like, how did that become the way that we weight a harder class because they're taking a risk, but they're doing it not because it's a harder class. They're doing it so that they get college credit or opportunity for college credit. So I'm curious more, this is back to your point, I think, probably need a little bit more information on all this, but.
Director Anderson?
Yeah, I mean, I think what this email would suggest to me is there's a more robust consideration here in terms of what we're going to do overall with all of these classes. So that's where I feel like this feels premature when we don't have all of that background to really understand. You know, it makes sense that we approach all of them in a similar fashion, that they're all advanced classes. So do we give that weight or do we not? Perhaps we take a more consistent approach. Or
Second part to the question, though, is the principals also presented that one of the goals was to enhance or build out the concurrent enrollment effort. So where are we at with that? Do we have, did the district decide to move forward with that as a plan? Do we have a structure or anything in place to enhance or build upon concurrent enrollment to keep the kids here?
We do not at this time. We know that it is certainly of interest. There are two significant issues related to concurrent enrollment. Number one, cost to the district. Number two, certification of staff, because in order to teach, as you know, our teachers teach those courses through the university. So we pay for each student that takes a concurrent enrollment class, just like we do with PSEO. We pay a fee for each student. In terms of certification, in order for teachers to be eligible to teach concurrent enrollment classes, they have to first and foremost have a degree a master's degree in their area of expertise.
So I heard that wasn't quite the case, but I don't know the details, but like 20 years of experience kind of supplemented against the master's kind of is sort of the new potential policy that I might have heard was at least at the school that we're currently working through. So
there can be a slight variation. In some cases, the universities require a master's in the field and 18 credits on top of that. So we do see a slight variation. The initial requirement of the master's in the field and then the additional credits came from the universities.
Yeah.
It didn't come out of K-12 public education as a requirement. Universities wanted to ensure that teachers that were associated with their university were, by their terms, qualified to be able to teach those courses. So, so again, when we're looking at that from a teacher's standpoint, the benefit to the teacher to go potentially back to school, how do you pay for that? Who's going to incur the cost? Are we? So there are a number of things that we would have to sort out as a district and commit to, both financially as well as in terms of staff support. I think, I don't want to speak for the principals, but I know in previous conversations with them, they definitely support concurrent enrollment options for students because our kids get to be here. They get to be in our schools. They get to have an experience here. And a lot of times be with their peers and other things. So there are definitely benefits to expanding that program. I think what we'd have to talk about, and I know that it was mentioned on one of the goal sheets as a possible action item. We'd really want to investigate what's the cost to the district, and then how would we incentivize for the teachers to be able to get credentialed in the way that's necessary for them to be able to teach the courses. I would say those are probably the two things that stand out to me.
Are we back on 620, or are we hopping over on board goals?
620.
Okay.
Yep. Director Nicholson, you are right. I mean, I think the more we can offer programs and those alternatives in our district, the better, to give our students more choices. But again, we still need to go back to the policy itself. I mean, do you want to wait an extra 1.2 for these students or not who are taking not honors classes, but a college level, content. And so I feel like if they are taking that tougher class, and I think what I heard was that, they're getting a free class, they're getting college credit, so, they take on that risk. And so if you've got a student that may not do so well, it does impact their GPA, and then it does impact scholarships, and it may impact XYZ for those institutions that don't unweighted. And so our students may then be competing against other students where when they're just looking at GPA versus GPA, it puts our Lakeville students in a disadvantage as well if we don't weight any of these. And so yes, these students are taking more advanced classes. Would they have gotten an easier A if they take a non-advanced class, and then you competing against scholarships for XYZ. Another thing for consideration is that I think I saw it on Facebook, and I don't know if anyone else reads Facebook, maybe Instagram, but on Facebook they were posting at Eden Prairie, almost 2,000 of their students took an AP class this year. And of those 2,000 students, 80% of them got a score of 3 or better. Now, when you look at an AP rating, a student takes this AP class, and at the end of the school year, they take this final exam. And you got to get a score of a 3 or more on a scale up to 5. So you got to get a 3, 4, or 5 to get credit for that class. And so Eden Prairie is promoting 80% of our students get at least a 3 or better. And so when you take a program like that, you're going to have outliers that succeed and some that may not get to the level that they want to. So you've got 400 students in Eden Prairie that did not get a 3 in their program. And so when we look at PSEO, where we've got some students that are falling behind or did not earn that credit or get a degree, totally makes sense. Love to see the data to see how many. But when you take a PSEO class, you can get an A, you can get a B, you can get a C, and technically you can get a D and still pass that class. And so I don't know how many get an Fs, but I just want to make sure, level set. Just because you take an AP class doesn't mean that credit recovery may not be an option for folks that don't do well. I don't know. So,
Director Anderson.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think it's hard for us to judge how all of these courses, the level of difficulty, are they all the same or are they different? And that's where I'm just coming back to, I think we need the experts to let us know the path forward. I don't feel like our board necessarily has a good understanding of, how does an AP class compare to a concurrent class or a PSEO class? And so, they're all not, they're not all the same, potentially. I don't think we know. So it's more, to me, I feel like we're spinning wheels when we don't have the content.
Just out of, I guess, a point of clarification then, in terms of AP classes that we offer here, core classes, right? Math, science, English, those are the AP classes that we offer, right?
There's psychology and.
We offer AP psychology.
Yes, and things like AP art history and other things. So we do have the highest number of AP classes that we have, I would say, are in the core. But then we do have some other AP classes in other areas.
Okay. And are there restrictions on PSEO classes? Like, are they allowed to take? How wide can they go? I mean, college
Students have to
curriculum's
qualify
pretty
through
wide.
the university or college
Yep.
in order to access PSEO, and then they have to provide their own transportation. And so sometimes a student can be full-time PSEO or could be, take a class or two. So it's just sort of dependent on a number of factors, schedule.
I was more wondering the restrictions on what classes they can take at
No,
PSEO.
there is not.
None.
Well, let me back up a little bit. They are still required by the state to meet the graduation requirements. They can take a more rigorous course in that area, which qualifies. So, for example, they have to take world history. say they go to a college and take a history of the world that is more rigorous, and it's not exactly the high school world history. They can do that under a rigorous course waiver situation, but they do still have to meet the requirements, yes.
Given the weight of this, and we can chat about it, no pun intended, chat with maybe the policy members or policy committee members. Maybe we just want to have a principal come back and speak to the entire board, so we're not, trying to remember or answer those questions on their behalf. So, because there are bigger implications. Just my thought.
Maybe
We
a
could move
district
on.
recommendation?
What's that?
Maybe a district recommendation? What would be, from our team here? What do they think we should do? Or what does everybody think is in the best interest of our kids?
Yeah. We good to move on? All right. Board member reports. Anyone? All right. Report from the superintendent.
I have nothing at this time. Thank you, Chair Swanson.
Wasting your opportunity, Emily. Wasting your opportunity. All right. Back on the board goals. Does everyone need to stretch before we do this, or? No, I think we can go for a little while longer. So we made it through the discussion on a whopping 3 board goals last time. I do want to just start off by, I appreciate everyone who sent things to me and different structures of goals. I received several of them, different ideas. Paul and I, or Director Carbone and I, discussed it with Superintendent Bauman this week. Just from a timing perspective, he was encouraging us to actually vote on some priorities, just so they have something to focus on moving forward into the school year. I know I'd sent out an email to everyone about that, and more specifically regarding the academic goals and initiative priorities, because there's 14 of them. And again, I think everyone who sent me goals, I think they're all great. The question is, which ones do we focus on, at least for this next year or this next phase? Financial goals, HR goals, and the additional items are a little bit more limited. Even the board goals are a little bit more limited, where I think those might be easier to come to a quick consensus on. But academic goals, I don't know that I think we could probably spend months going over all 14, and more would come out of that. I do want to give people an opportunity, obviously, to share what their priorities are, or what they're thinking about different goals, but would like to come to some sort of consensus, or be ready to vote on what we want our priorities to be, at least in this initial phase, and then we can refine them as we go forward. Director Carbone.
Yeah, Matt, I think one of the things that's really important is the discussion that Superintendent Bauman had with us, and that is to focus starting out with academics. Last year, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there were a total of 5 goals, 22, 23 goals. I thought I saw 5 core goals. 14, 15, 16 goals, I think that's too much to give as a directive, if you will. I think we need to look at the academic side, give Superintendent Bauman 5, 6 goals on the academic side, give or take, and try and get them to him by the middle of August so that he can get back with his principals and anyone else in the administration that he needs to cascade these down to, so they can start creating initiatives to successfully complete them.
I'd prefer to get to them faster than that, just as far as their priorities, just because they are going to be moving forward with things pretty quickly here, or they're just going to do them on their own. So if we want to send some priorities their way, again, if anyone wants to highlight any ideas or priorities before we press any type of vote, I would appreciate that. Director Anderson?
Yeah, I'm not, I guess I expressed concern about kind of our approach here. I know I shared that with you via email. Even when Dr. McDonald sent out the SCOP, the School Improvement Plan, thank you for sharing that. That was something I was interested in seeing. Really, I feel like our cadence is very off. So I guess I share this for us for consideration for future. If the district principals are coming together in June, or earlier than that, to make a plan for the upcoming school year in June and get their SCOPs in place in June so that they can be planning over the summer and launch in the fall, we have missed the boat by a long time at this point. And so I guess my concern is that we haven't done a board evaluation, we haven't done a superintendent evaluation, we haven't really put goals forward in a very timely manner. So that is one thing that I think we should be thinking about as we move forward, is really how do we better plan in a way that the district leadership can execute more efficiently. In terms of passing goals tonight, I just, I don't know, I wish we had done this differently. We haven't reviewed everything to really understand what I know what Superintendent Bauman is saying, and I do appreciate that, but I would rather we have a broader discussion about our priorities and I actually really appreciated what Director Baker shared out with the group. That is more how I see our, the broader goals, what the board's role is in that, what the superintendent's role what the superintendent's role is in that, how does that align with the strategic plan, which all those things I think are really important. So I would say as we're moving into fall, there are a number of things that as a board we have to get together, I think, to be more effective in this process next year. One, we have a new strategic plan to develop, which should be a big goal for us. So I would say it's very difficult at this time to set, we can focus on one category, but to me, if we just focus on academics and we're not thinking about the path to, how does the board support that from a financial perspective, from a student support perspective, how do we support our teachers and staff to retain them, all of those kinds of things. So it's multi-layered to get to better academic outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Director Carbone.
Yeah, please. I think there are probably 3 areas that we've been speaking about as a board to the public since I think maybe February. The 90% proficiency in math and reading and growth, data analytics and a data dashboard, curriculum mapping and pacing so that all schools are teaching the same sort of subjects and levels, so everybody's getting the same education as close as possible, no matter which middle school you're in, high school you're in, or elementary school you're in. So I think at least those 3 topics that we've been talking about turning into goals since February, I'm not sure those are new to the discussion. And I think that even last week, 3 of them that were sort of, I don't know if I'd call them approved, but we were agreed upon, were the 90% proficiency, the growth, and the curriculum mapping and pacing. So, 2 out of the 3, the only other one left that we've been talking about since February is the data analytics and the data dashboard, which I don't see really why we can't come up with something that creates a direction with some metrics. I know that's something that Director Thompson has been talking about for a long time too. So I think under academics, at least those 3 areas since February could be turned into goals.
Director Cameron.
I think where I'm at is that, and this is no critique, Matt, to you, or this process necessarily, but what is presented in the board packet is the document we worked off last week with some edits, of course, but it is a very elementary, in my opinion, way to set board goals for a professional school district. There are rants in here about like kids going to Starbucks, for example. I just don't think this rises to the level of a board packet document. And I think that warrants discussion. I think it is a brainstorm list, and that is how I'm approaching this. When we talked last week, yes, we started with 1, 2, 3, but both you and Director Carbone made it clear that just because we started with 1, 2, 3 we weren't going to automatically adopt 1, 2, 3. That was said to me in that meeting. And so then to be presented this week with those are the 3 we're going to proceed with is totally blindsiding and misleading from our conversation last week. I don't disagree with some of these things. In fact, I agree with some. I don't feel like number 3, we kind of ended. We didn't really formalize the 1.2 factor because I think nobody knew what that meant in terms of how you actually measure FastBridge scores. But I'm not interested in approving board goals, district goals that are not comprehensive. And I appreciate what Superintendent Baumann may have said to you all in a closed meeting. I think our financial goals have to align in a way that supports our academic goals. I don't think they do at all with this document. And I think it's irresponsible as a board not to have a conversation about, we're really asking miracles to happen with raising our test scores to 90% in the next 5 years. I want all kids to succeed. There's no discussion of what will happen if we don't meet those goals, and those are questions that are being asked in our district. And so if there's no meat behind the goals, or resources behind the goals, which we haven't discussed, I just don't feel like they mean much to anyone.
Director Nicholson.
There's a lot to unpack with that one, but I think at some point we have to set a general target. We have to say that we want to get better, okay? We had declining scores on all of our MCA stuff. I mean, the MCAs are a bad-looking metric for our district. So we need to say that has to turn around, period. That has to go upwards, not downwards, another year. FastBridge, I mean, if you look at just the presentation we got from Teaching and Learning back in February, it showed 80% in kindergarten, drops down every year all the way to 9th grade. That trend has to go the other direction. At this point in time, we can't pass a levy in time to impact 2025, 26, even if you wanted to. So I get that. I get where you're going about resourcing and trying to find money to do all this stuff and everything else, but we don't even know where our gaps are yet. We don't know if we can accomplish it or can't accomplish it. We have to turn it over to the district. They have to start working on a plan. I would love it if they would take some of our high-level goals and say, okay, this is what we want to accomplish. This is what it's going to take to get there. We can start putting these things in motion. This we can't get to yet. And have them come back to us and say exactly what it is they need to make it happen, to make 90% happen. Or if that's just too lofty and just unattainable due to the population of everybody that's included in that number, and certain populations should be sorted out of it. I don't know how SPED gets factored in. I mean, do we have third grade reading at, for special ed? Are they supposed to read at a third grade level for special, is that equal? How do they get compared? Does MDE somehow weed that out for us? I don't know that answer. But they already set a goal at 90% in 5 years. So they rolled out a goal without talking to us, without going through us. They've already done it now. So I think we should lean into that and say, you guys did it. Let's start working towards it. Now, what do we need to do to get there? And until we know that, we can guess. We can say we need 25 more teachers. We need, tons more money here, there, whatever else. We haven't talked about augmenting anything with technology, AI, nothing. None of those conversations have come up. So we haven't looked at how we can improve our internal efficiencies with what we have. before we start making up. And again, you're talking about fact-free planning. This is exactly the issue, though, is like going through it right now, trying to say, well, we got to put all this resourcing plan together. We should consider all those things. Yeah, but they put a goal out for academics. Let's agree that they set a great goal, lofty, but a great target. Why shouldn't we try to see if we can start moving in that direction and then start building the list of priorities that we need to make it happen?
Yeah, I support the fact that we need to increase our performance and we need our kids to be better prepared. I think what I'm trying to say is that we're doing a good job of telling the district what their goals should be. I also want to know, as a board and as a board member, how are we going to organize ourselves to support these goals? Maybe it's through levies, maybe it's through other initiatives or trainings, but I think we're doing our best as a board. We are a very elementary board. Most of us haven't had robust training on how to run a board. And I think when we look at how achievable goals can be met, that's fine that Superintendent Baumann and has set this 90% goal. We can rally behind that. I'm prepared to have the conversation about what does our district need to get there. Not having the board name the tactics, because this list that is here is a brainstorm. Half of them, I would say, are a brainstorm list of ideas and tactics for delivering education in our district. That is not our expertise. We can listen to the superintendent and others say we want to hit 90% for MCAs, for example, but then it's up to them, and I think you're saying this too, Brett, that how they want to get there is up to them and asking us what support they need to get there.
100%. And that's kind of my point. They already set that goal.
But I am concerned.
I'm leaning into it saying, I like it.
Yeah, but I am concerned that we are not talking about our financial goals simultaneously, because we're talking about increasing our fund balance, which I don't oppose that, right? In theory, like all these things in isolation are wonderful. But also, I feel like in order to have an effective goal approach, these things they're relational. And unless we're willing to pass a goal package, I'm not interested in ad hocing this and saying we're going to pass 1 and number 3 and maybe number 7 without an understanding of how those support or don't support one another.
How are we going to make that up, though, now?
Yeah, I just want to address a couple things, Amber, with all due respect. I don't take offense to you calling elementary because I didn't draft all these, right? I asked the board to send me their proposed goals. They sent me the proposed goals. I put them together. If you're not happy with the goals on this list and you don't want to approve them, you should have sent me more goals, right? I mean, is there a goal that you sent me that I did not list?
Well, can I respond to that?
Yeah,
I'm
just
happy with some
'cause
of these goals.
again,
What I'm not happy
hold on.
with is that we're just there are so many things on this list, right? And it was a great brainstorming exercise. I think we need a facilitated approach to look at the whole picture, to narrow these down into buckets so that we're not just saying, okay, 1, 2, 3 happened to have been published first, which is interesting, I think, and we're going to pass 1, 2, 3.
Well,
My goals were not
we
1, 2, 3.
we can complain about the process and not actually discuss the goals, or we can discuss the goals. I think 2 and 3 actually get to metrics, which is what we want, right? There are other things that have been more labeled initiatives, which get into, like you said, telling the district we want to see them do things. I will say some of the initiatives are more so to fill gaps that we see in the system. I mean, I know there's been statements that have been made to me like, trust the district, right? Well, I don't think that's the board's purview necessarily, right? We're not a rubber stamp for the district. So if we see holes, we can address that and raise those. Ask for opportunities and other things to be addressed.
I think I don't subscribe to the rubber stamp. I think there are serious things to improve, right?
But we can talk about language like all day long, but if we don't provide some sort of direction that we can measure and track, then we're just spinning our wheels.
So
Director Thompson.
Yeah, so I think as a stakeholder looking at our list of goals and a list of initiatives, a list of goals that we want in the board packet or in the meeting packet, it could come off where there are randomly placed things from academics to finance to XYZ. And so I am trying to get us all on board on, if you are running a business, how do you know that your business is being successful? What is the health of your business? If you're selling widgets for your business, I don't want to arbitrarily say, we need to sell 10,000 widgets when we've only sold 500. And so when I think about the MCA metrics of trying to get to 90, there may be some reason that we can't get there because maybe our baseline is only at 67. And so I think the first step we've got to get to is, what do you want to know as a business owner to see if the state of your business or the state of your schools are doing well? And so Superintendent Ballman last week shared there were 4 categories of things that you would want to identify metrics to see if that's enough for you to tell you that your district is doing well. And once we identify those metrics, then we have to establish the baseline and then decide, do we think that baseline can be better at the end of the school year? And if we adjust that baseline and now you form a target/goal, that really becomes the directive for the district to say, this is what we want you to go after. And they can come back and say, we can get there, we can't get there, the resources that might be associated to that. Now, in this meeting packet, there are a bunch of, I would say, initiatives, things that would contribute to improving those metrics, and I think those initiatives could be at the discretion of the district. That's more of like how they get there. We as a board need to say, this is what I want you to get to, and tell me what's the level of effort for you to get there. So here's an example. One of the goals on the meeting board is establishing a mentorship program. And so I would not list that as a metric if I was running a business. I would list employee satisfaction per score. So let's say my employee satisfaction score is an 85. Part of the ways that we can improve that to get it to 95, maybe the past feedback that says, I don't have good mentorship, I don't have good support. I would look to the district to say, okay, we want to implement a mentorship program because we feel that will move the needle of the employee satisfaction scores from 85 to 89%. And so they would come back and say, here's the level of effort, here's the money that we need, here's the lever that we would pull to get there. But I think as a board, we got to take a step back and ask ourselves first, what metrics do you want to see within those 4 buckets that Superintendent Ballman suggested? The academics, finance, HR, and operations. Now, I would add a 5th one called student engagement, but that's separately. And from there, do we feel that those metrics within those 4 buckets make you feel comfortable by knowing that score? Yes, my business is doing well. Yes, my school is doing well. Now, I've got 9 metrics within academics that I can propose, and let's just go through them and say, do you like that metric? Will that metric make you feel comfortable that whatever score that is helps you understand your school is doing well? So I'll pause here.
I assume, this all presupposes that we are approving initiative to establish a dashboard that shows all of these metrics.
Well, a dashboard should have been approved or should have been established 10 years ago. And here we are asking ourselves, how are we spending $300 million effectively?
I move to approve a dashboard that displays all of our goals and tracking for the district services.
I second that. We need to have something.
Yeah.
Now,
Is not Superintendent Bauman working on that, Tracy? I thought when we had I thought when we had conversations a couple months ago, whenever it was, I lose track of time, and we were talking about data analytics. I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought you and Superintendent Bauman said you were going to start, looking at data analytics, looking at putting a dashboard together, et cetera, et cetera. And Brian, I know when those discussions were going on, we were asking for specific things for proficiency and, yada, yada. So is that not happening?
Yeah, that's correct. We are creating data visualizations to start, and some of the board members have come in to have a training to see those visualizations and understand the data that they're looking at. And then we will extend that. We are looking at a dashboard that would, exactly what you're talking about, as you develop your goals, there'll be smaller snapshots of each metric that you're looking at that will be able to be seen on one smaller dashboard rather than going into the full visualizations.
Okay, that being said, I'm glad that's in motion, but I'm sorry.
I made it kind of in jest, but go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, right.
I was just pointing that.
There is.
Are
you've
we
got a
having
motion.
discussion about the motion? That's where we would be next, because there's a
Yeah,
motion and a second.
We're discussing the motion, aren't we? Or a point of clarification? Are we not doing that? Okay, I'm
Is there any
sorry.
discussion? Yes.
Is there any discussion
sorry.
on the motion, being a first and a second?
All right,
Well-
all right. Thank you, Tracy, for that answer. But that being said, one more comment, and I'll yield the floor. That being said, the motion that Matt and Brian just pushed forward, I do not think, I think that's a good idea. Even though this project is in motion, I think as a board, we need to state this is what we officially want. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Any other discussion on the motion?
I guess one, yeah, I do have something else to say, but within this discussion, I'm wondering if that's redundant, because I think we all have clarified that we do want the data dashboard, and so if it's happening, then what are we doing?
We're putting
I mean, so maybe
I
the,
did kind of jokingly say it because it's on our list, but.
but I mean, maybe the point is that the board be clear about the metrics we want to be visualizing on the data dashboard. That would be a different.
That's
Yeah.
where the goal comes in.
Literally what I said last week, you guys.
Well, but,
That's what we're saying.
okay, I
So-
mean,
So the dashboard, it's in progress. It's on Campus Infinite, and then there's a variety of different tabs that you can select. What I'm asking for is one unified, simple look and feel, one page or one tab or whatever you want to call it, that tracks all of the key metrics that we think that are associated to academics, finance, HR, and operations. What we as a board need to decide is that within academics, what metric do you want to see that makes you feel comfortable our school is doing well? So I'm going to give one example. Fast Bridge data. All right, I want to see a percentage of students that are at or above benchmark between grade 3 and 8 between reading and math. That is one metric that I would like to see. And if I saw that metric, I would be like, oh, here's where we are for reading and math between grades 3 and 8. Now, once we get the baseline, whatever the score is, we should come back together as a group and say, do we like that number? Do we think that number can be better? And if so, do we arbitrarily make a number up, or do we ask the district to come back and say, we think we can get that number from 75% to 80%? And then if we agree with that 80% within that one metric, that has now given the district the directive of figure out how to get to 80%. Now that's one metric out of 9 that I'd like to propose to be on that dashboard. I'll pause here because I have another one I'd like to share.
I think Director Anderson is owed a minute.
if we're on a motion, my comment is more general. Like, I feel like if we're on a motion in a second, the only thing I would say is, I don't know that we're gonna get to what we want on the metric tonight unless we spend 2 hours doing that and we have no goal finished. But, so maybe a different discussion for what we want on the metric. I just do wonder if that needs to be that could be a broader goal to work with Tracy on that. She's doing it. We
Yeah.
just, part of that is just communication about what we're expecting as a board.
Discussion on the motion. If,
I do align with Director Thompson in, I like the idea of setting clear metrics with our baseline, with our goal, and maybe like a a really, I can't think of the words right now, but an immediate goal and a long-term goal. Maybe that's a good way to say it. I feel like there are district goals out there in other districts that look that way. I feel like it's very straightforward, clear, and it's very metrics and time-bound. I'm not as in favor, to be honest, with like narrative approach. I think there are 20 or so metrics that could probably go on a document that Brian, you're talking about, or some number that's measuring all. I want to measure all of those things simultaneously, not just picking MCA or FastBridge and I feel like that's the approach that I'm being led with this document, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. So I support that. I think the other thing I'll say with the dashboard is I'm less concerned about like a super attractive formatted dashboard that everyone in the world can come see, but I want to know the data that day or that week. Like it should all exist. I'm concerned about like spending all this resources and staff time and making this pretty, because I've seen how much effort can go into that rather than just making sure we have the data. And I don't support the number 8 in the document, how it's currently written about the data dashboard. So if that's what we're approving, I don't approve that one in the sense that I don't think all of those stakeholders, so administrators, board, teachers, and parents, should have access to all of the same data at all of the levels. So that's a conversation I would want to have if that's what we're looking at.
Can I just say,
Yeah, I don't think it was to approve 8 specifically.
Okay.
It was just a general idea. I don't know that we've ever, as a group, given voice of approval of let's move forward with the data dashboard. But Director Nicholson, did you have something?
Well,
Okay, so that's a legitimate motion that we're now going with
It
this?
sounds like it. Let's do it.
Okay, so we're talking about an actual data dashboard. We're not talking about what's on it yet. We're just all agreeing that, yeah, we want to have that. Do we put a timestamp on it? Like, we want to start seeing, like, can it be done, or do we need to wait?
I mean, we have a version of it right now, technically.
Okay.
Yeah,
to
what do we want
include-
different?
But to include whatever the goals are that we're setting, the measurable goals.
So, since there's a motion on the table for that, then I think if we want to make changes, an amendment to the motion might need to be done, right?
all the-
All right, so then I'll make an amendment to the motion. So let's go ahead and get this out there, that the dashboard includes FastBridge data from grade 3 through 8, reading and math, that shows the percentage of students at benchmark or above, capturing both fall, winter, and spring metrics. There's your first one. Is there a second?
I'll second
You want to amend each individual
asking
point?
for-
Let's go through it. Well,
but-
let's do something.
Why at or above? Why not just all FastBridge data?
Well, it's not, because I don't need to see all of the data. What I want to see is how many students are at or above benchmark. And then if it's 75% or 85%, then that's the number that we want to go after. We want to know how many students are at or above benchmark at grade level 3 through 8 for now. Now, we can set the targets later, but for now, this report or this dashboard that tells me if our school district is doing well, do my kids in grades 3 through 8, can they read? Do they know math?
And I love that. I agree with that. I think that if we are going to go forward and start putting down what metrics we want to track, and this is going to be, back to I think what you guys are saying is hard to put a goal down right now. Okay, well, can we all agree that these are the metrics we need to start building? And then when we come back and look at this after they've built it and we establish a benchmark, then we're going to set goals for probably 26, 27 is really what we're looking at then.
Can
So
I just clarify what we're doing? Are you,
There's
because I
there's
don't
an amendment
disagree
to
with
the
what you're
motion.
saying. I just want to know, are you going to make an amendment for everything you want on the dashboard right now?
Yes, if that's what it takes to get this rolling, or I can share all of the metrics and you guys blanket approve it or not.
Well,
right.
I want to be thoughtful about just giving people time to consider. I mean, in the past, when we talked about kind of no surprises at the table, some people need time to consider or consult about what they want on the dashboard.
This first metric is on the goals list. So it's not like it's a new one.
No, but that's why I'm trying to clarify. Are you going to go through every single thing and make an amendment for every single thing you have on your dashboard?
I will go through and do an amendment for all the ones that is on that goals list, and then I will tee up the other ones as one big bulk package where you guys decide if it makes sense to add them or not. As an example, I want to know the course failure rate. I want to know graduation rate. And I want to know AP placement scores, how many percentages are above 3 or greater. So those are just a few examples. But for the core, if I looked at a dashboard and that says, what's your FastBridge reading metric for your grade through 8, is that metric enough right now to tell you? You may not need GPA distribution. You may not care about, let me rephrase it, course failure rate may not be an option right now, but let's walk through this and get there.
But what I want to just say is that we got this document from you today. And so you, in the past, have talked about the Brian Thompson plan.
Yep.
Right? Which is present,
So
consider,
let's do
present.
this. Let's do this. Let me
then-
present a metric, and you tell me, yes, I think that's good enough for me to know. That actually tells me if my school is doing well or not. I mean,
But if-
it's not a complicated thing.
But if we're thoroughly reviewing this in this moment, that's not giving, we're reviewing what you think you think should be on the metric, and it's not giving everyone else an opportunity, or what should be on the dashboard. It's not giving everybody else an opportunity to do the same.
But that
Can I
doesn't-
ask
that
a
Can we
question?
land on these
Hold
three?
on. Can I just ask a question? Carly, what's the detriment to having any metric that we have available that could measure, improvements in student outcomes? What's the detriment to having that available on the dashboard?
I'm only saying that if this is a goal that we're passing, as like, this is what the board is saying we want the district to do, I don't mind us saying, let's do something comprehensive with the dashboard, and let's come back together and decide exactly what we want that to be. This right now is going through what Brian wants to be on the dashboard, which we just got his, and it's not that I haven't had time to review it.
What I
So-
did was I took the goals document and I transferred it over into what's considered a metric, what's considered an initiative. So for example, establishing a mentorship program is an initiative. It's not a metric that I would look at a dashboard that tells me my school is doing well.
It's a compliance issue
Well,
also.
yes, it's a compliance issue. Another component could be update student management handbook. That's not a metric on a dashboard. It is an initiative. Now, what is a metric would be ACT scores. It would be the average salary of an FTE at our district. A metric could be staff satisfaction percentage score or employee student satisfaction. Chronic absenteeism rate could be a metric. So that's what I want us to align on so that we can actually get somewhere. But for right now, we're focused on just the first bucket, which is academics, and let's just find what metrics we think are comfortable to help us understand where we're at. That's all.
I just think there could also be something like, when we think about the culture of our schools and what we've seen with the
Absolutely.
safety stuff.
Yes.
But that's what I mean. That's something I'm thinking of in the moment, and it hasn't given everyone an opportunity. We haven't had the opportunity to say what we would want to see as an indicator of how our school is improving, or our district is improving.
And part of this might be, we don't know the indicator, but we know what we want. So as an example, I have the 5th category called student engagement, behavioral incident reports, bullying, P3. Like, we want to know what metrics should we be monitoring or viewing so that we feel comfortable that that has a spotlight to it. Now, again, that's an area that I don't know what metric we should be capturing, but I do want something to this extent of, how do we understand the number of incidents has declined? And so if we agree we want something like that, the district will have to come forward and say, hey, here's the metric we think you should monitor, but that's on the student engagement side. We can't even get past academics. Like, let's start there.
Director Carbone.
Yeah, I have never, in being in business for decades in corporations, seen a dashboard that is frozen in time forever.
Yeah, we'll have
Every day, and we're having a conversation like this dashboard will never change, nothing, no variable will ever be added or subtracted, and that's not the real world. That's not what happens. I do think, and I'm going to come back to what Brian or Matt just said, we've got to start something and get something in motion somewhere, somehow. If we establish a dashboard tonight, because there is a motion on the table, and Brian, if we take your 9 things in a package and say we're okay with them, that doesn't mean in a month there won't be 12 things, or in a month there won't be 7 things. So I think we need to not think this is frozen in time, but it's something that moves and ebbs and flows. So we've got to get started somewhere, and I'm going to go back to the motion, and I don't think it's a bad motion.
We're back at the amendment to the motion. Why don't you start with
Or
your,
the
why don't
amendment.
you, can I just propose you start with the academic?
Yeah, I can.
Metrics.
Yeah. Let me do the first 3 and see if there's alignment on the first 3, and then we can figure out the remaining. So the first one was seeing on the dashboard FastBridge data, the percentage of students that are at metrics or at benchmark or above for reading and math, grades 3 through 8, fall, winter, spring. That's the first metric. The second metric would be on the dashboard, what is the MCA score or percentage, whatever the score is that we get annually for grade 3 through 11, because then for me, that would help me understand if that correlates with the FastBridge percentage. And then the third metric that I'd like to see is from the MCA results that we get annually, the number of benchmarks that each grade is hitting. And so, for example, in reading in 3rd grade, there are about 20 benchmarks for reading in 3rd grade. I want to know how many of those benchmarks are we at or above? And so I want to count. So because when you look at the MCA score percentage of 56% or 70%, it doesn't get down to that weeds. I want to know how many benchmarks are we meeting and how much are we or exceeding. Now, if I saw that and I saw, 15 out of 20 benchmarks are being met, then I would be like, oh, that's a 75% score. That seems reasonable. I don't know. But when we come back together as a board and we review that benchmark score, we could say, no, I don't want 15. I want 18 or something of that nature. So those are the core 3 in my mind that will get us started with how we are doing as a school district.
All right, is there a second to the amendment? There's seconded by Director Carbone. Any discussion on the amendment? Director Cameron.
First, I want to hear the amendment again, because I feel like there's a lot of words.
Yeah. So I think
Do you want me to restate it?
Second, before you say it,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
that is the reason, is because with FastBridge 2, there are subcategories. So you get a reading score or you get a math score, but there are, I only know from my personal child's experience, so an expert in this room should jump in probably with more detail. But I know when I look at my kindergartner's FastBridge score, there are subcategories. So if we're going to look at MCA subs, why wouldn't we look at the subs in all assessments?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Maybe if there was someone who's more knowledgeable of this topic, could come forward and have a discussion or share their point of view. But if as I'm looking somewhere else, sorry. Well, yes, I think for me, because of the FastBridge data, from my understanding, they may have subscores, and I don't think I've gotten that level of detail. But in grade 3, you can see of all the 3rd graders, how many of them are meeting FastBridge's benchmark. Yep.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how many benchmarks there are, but a percentage is where I think I landed on, because we're getting that 3 times a year. And does that percentage increase throughout the course of the year? Now, the hope is that as our students are meeting the FastBridge benchmark, that ought to translate maybe to improved MCA scores. But the MCA scores that we get is just a percentage at the district level, I believe. But the data might be available at the grade level. Yes. And so but the score might come at like 56% or 65 or 70 or 16%. I don't know, whatever number it is. I would like the more tactical subcategory of the benchmarks of the MCAs, because that's what we get tested on. We don't get tested on from the state of Minnesota on our FastBridge data. We get tested on what the benchmarks are at the MCA. And so I don't mind if you want to expand the FastBridge benchmarks, but the ultimate goal is to make sure that our students know what the state of Minnesota's benchmarks are, and understanding the list of benchmarks for them is the path that I'd like us to go.
Director Cameron.
Okay, there's another question about the dash. I feel like dashboard has like become one of those like jargon kind of words, right? And it can mean a lot of different things to different people. I just want to know the data. I don't care how it looks, if I can. So what exactly are we talking about with the dashboard? I know, Tracy, what your team's working on, but are we asking for something different? And who can access this information and at what level? I think that is really important for me to be able to understand.
If this is a board dashboard, then I think the board should have access to it. We can have a iterative conversation later if we want to expand who has access to it. For now, this is an executive dashboard where we see if our schools are doing well.
At what grade level you're talking?
For the FastBridge data, yeah, grade level.
Like, we're not going to student level?
Oh, no, we don't, no,
Okay.
not at the student level.
Because that's what our goals say.
Yes.
So we're going.
I apologize. Yeah,
okay.
we don't need to go down to the student level, and we don't even. I don't believe at this time for this iteration we need to go down to the classroom level. But I do want to know at the grade level for third graders, how many of them are meeting benchmark or above?
Director Anderson.
Can I also just clarify that, because I think a lot of things, when we talk about grade 3 through 8, a lot of things could impact how any one student is performing.
Totally agree.
So we, at this point, are not defining how we would disaggregate the data.
Correct.
We don't have to do that as part of this goal.
I don't think we need to. I think we just want to know.
We want more data. So we can later define to Tracy, others, let's make sure we're separating out certain populations or certain groups to better understand how we're doing in certain groups.
Correct. And I think that could be part of the how the district would go down that route. So for example, if grade 3 reading is at 65% and we as a district say we want that at 75%, then I would look to the administration and the district to say, all right, they would dissect the data further to various subgroups to say how and what can we do to elevate that number back to 85% or to get it to 85%. Mm-hmm. I don't think we need that subgroup data because I don't need to tell the district, go teach these kids more or those kids less. I want to know, can my third graders read at grade level and with proficiency? And that's it.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we're being thoughtful about how we're consuming the data too.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yep. So those are the core 3 out of 9 that I'm going to suggest for academics. If we're in alignment, do those metrics help you understand if your district is meeting reading and math expectations? And maybe science for the MCA, but whatever, so.
All right.
For at least those core 2.
There's a first and a second. If there's no further
Sorry,
discussion.
so you said FastBridge and MCA scores?
And
MCA scores and
benchmarks
MCA benchmarks.
per grade.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, it is approved.
And
I have another, go ahead.
thank you,
Carbone.
Brian. I just want to make one comment to Tracy. And Tracy, I know you know this, Superintendent Bauman has said this too, but it's okay if you come up with more things that will make this clearer for us as far as looking at students' achievements. So I just wanted to say that publicly.
Assistant Superintendent McDonald.
Thank you, and thank you for that comment, Vice Chair Cabarone. I would just add that as part of the ongoing discussion related to the dashboard, which of course the intent is to be inclusive of whatever goals the board determines that they would like to see. Alongside of that, I know that Superintendent Baumann has talked a little bit around also the quarterly business review. And so as we have been having those conversations, our intention is to build out data in the dashboard that would be representative of both of those things, so that when we come to the board 3 times a year during the school year, we would have a more comprehensive metrics package than just what the board goals represent. So back to what Director Thompson was saying, when we internally really are assessing the health of our system, we have our core goals, like what you saw in the Scott plan, but then we have other metrics that we look at in a wide variety of areas that are disaggregated to really sort of try to get that comprehensive picture. So I offer that to say that, yes, we are in alignment in terms of we want to make sure that whatever the goals are decided upon by the board, that those are part of that dashboard and are accessible in a way that makes sense. And then as we continue to build that out and we look at our quarterly business review and we come to you, we will have additional metrics that you may at some point want to adopt as a goal area, may not, it just depends, but just so you have an awareness of that. Our intent is really to provide you with more data than just what is representative as a goal. Because as stated, you can't make a goal in every single area. That doesn't mean we don't want to look at those areas when we're determining where we need to put in some effort or some finances or whatever, so.
Can I just knock, so technically, we didn't just approve a goal, right? Yeah, so your amendments for the first 3.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep going on
Yes.
4, 5, and 6?
Can I? All right, here's my next one. So I'll do another group of 3.
And just so we're clear, these aren't really goals.
These are not goals.
Setting the
These are
framework.
metrics for me to know,
Yeah.
do I think our school is doing well? And that's it. And then we'll come back and say, all right, whatever the baseline number is, as a board, do you want to improve it or not?
Can you, before you make an amendment, just rattle off the remaining 6?
Yeah, so the remaining 6 that I'd like to add in the academics section, that I think, again, if you are looking at your business or looking at this, would these goals help you feel comfortable with how your school is doing? So the first one is GPA distribution. So what's the average GPA score for 9th grade, 10th, 11th, and 12th? I don't know if whatever number it's supposed to be. I don't know if it's a number that if it's less than 2.0, does that on average that's not a great score, but that's the first metric. The second metric would be course failure rate. I would like to know the number of students or the number of students that have failed the course by quarter. I mean, and again, there's a lot of factors involved why a student has failed, but if I saw a number that drastically went to 500 for one particular quarter, I think that's, now I don't know if we want to do a percentage, but I would like to know the number of courses that are failed each quarter within our district. The third metric is graduation rate. I like to know how many folks are graduating. The fourth metric is what's our average ACT score for those who end up taking it. The fifth metric would be what's our AP placement score? And so how many students are getting 3 or above? And then the last one would be a curriculum audit result. And so I know there are some conversations around having some consistency around the curriculum. Whatever audit gets done, there has to be some sort of score that's associated with it. I would like to know if 80% is a score that we get in regards to our curriculum audit. And if we do that annually, ideally we want that number to be higher, and part of that curriculum audit might be more consistency or curriculum that's consistent across all the grades. So those are the 6 that I'd like to add. And so if I looked at this dashboard, I've got academics, I've got GPA distribution, how many kids are failing classes, how many kids are graduating, what's my average ACT score, what's my AP placement scores, And what is my curriculum audit score? So those are the,
Is there a motion to amend?
Are you
again
making
to
a
add-
motion?
I make a motion to approve those 6.
I'll second it.
All right, just so I'm clear, the motion is to further amend the initial motion to add GPA distribution, course failure rate, graduation rate, average ACT score, AP placement score, curriculum, audit results to the dashboard, the board's executive dashboard. Any discussion? Director Cameron?
Kind of going to Director Anderson's comment earlier, would I have the opportunity to come to a future board meeting potentially with another list of 6 for, my point being, I agree, Brian, with many of these things, right? I think there are probably hundreds of metrics that we could identify across the district in lots of areas. I know we just passed the 2 that I think align with the 2 of the goals that were highlighted in the document tonight. I'm interested in like early childhood participation. What percent of students are on track to graduate? Like, to Carly's point, I would love the time to sit with this, at least for a day, to think, what else could I add to your list that we might want to think about? Not that yours are wrong or bad, just I haven't had the opportunity to digest what we're even passing.
Director Carbone?
Yeah, Amber, I want to go back to a comment I made earlier because the fact that the dashboard isn't set in stone for forever. It's a moving target. So to answer your question, yes, if 2 months from now you had 4 things that you thought were tremendous metrics that we should be looking at, yes, we would entertain that.
I appreciate that, and I'm cognizant of resources within the district. There are only X amount of things that we can reasonably measure in a quality way, especially right away. And so are the 6 that have been proposed right now the ones? I don't think so. Are 2 of them? Yeah, maybe. So it's just one board member's opinion. And again, I respect your opinion, Brian. I think you've been thoughtful about this, but I don't think it's comprehensive, this conversation.
Director Nicholson?
I think a lot of these they're already tracking all this stuff, if I'm not mistaken. So Brian's actually saying, let's put this on a single executive dashboard
And let's
on
see it.
academics. Let's say we're going to look at it, we're going to pay attention to it and use it as a baseline for whenever we decide to come back. But we need to put it all out there so we can start kind of seeing it in aggregate. I guess under that context, sure. Like, why would we not? Like, I guess none of this is. I mean, if you got other things you'd propose, I mean, I'm pretty sure Brian likes data, so throw them out there. He might even say that was something better than he thought.
We will entertain any further amendments to add things right now if you have ideas. Again, a lot of this stuff, the data's there, right? And so we're just asking, consolidate it, make it accessible. Director Anderson?
Yeah, I think we just have to be thoughtful about, because like you said, Emily, or Dr. McDonald, like bringing it to the board in a more comprehensive way at certain time periods. So some of this data is going to be collected in an ongoing basis. Some of it's more at certain time points. Graduation rates, we get updated every year, but I agree it would be kind of nice to see, and we have been presented that data, what's been happening to our graduation rates over time. So I think if we are open to this being flexible and adjustable, and also how are we going to consume it in a way that is clear to them, how we're going to be taking it, analyzing it, what's more regular updates, what's more quarterly updates, what's yearly updates, et cetera. That makes sense.
There was a second. Yeah, I seconded it.
Okay. Any further discussion on the second amendment to the motion?
So these are all these things are currently being tracked on the dashboard, what Brian mentioned. Is that true?
I don't.
I don't think that's what they said. No,
Oh, sorry, I
just
thought that's
the
what you were
data is
saying.
available, right?
We look at it at some point in time.
Yeah, the data is available for hundreds of things. So my point is, what do we prioritize in
So-
terms of our staff time
So right now, we're focusing on just academics, right?
Yeah, the things I mentioned are also academics,
Yeah.
so.
I'm
but I've
completely
had
fine
two
adding those on.
But
Yeah.
my point is like, we can come up and name things off the seat of my pants, but until I see I mean, I know, Brian, you sent the document. I too was working today, right? Haven't had a time to look at it. I would love to look at it and come back next week and say, these are great. Here's 2 more ideas to think about, board. And I get what you're saying, Paul, about that this is not static. I don't think it's static at all. But that also doesn't mean we just tack on metric after metric after metric after metric without intention.
Director Nicholson?
I think the only reason we'd look at more metrics, though, is if we don't feel like we're getting a complete picture. And right now, we don't have a baseline. We don't have it, like we can't pull it up and say, let's look at last year. Let's look at all these metrics right now for last year. Snapshot. How do we do? We can't do it. So the way I'm looking at this is this establishes the framework to work within, right? This gives us a dashboard. We think these are all important things that if we look at all of this and this is trending in the right direction, again, dashboard, so at any point in time, we should be able to pull it up, see real-time data. That's what it is. And then we can sort of help the district progress and meet whatever we decide for the goal to be once we know what the benchmark is. But we haven't set the goal within any of these categories. We've just said these will help us start to get a clear picture of student success, at least on some level, academically. And I'll be clear about that, academically only. That's all we're looking at right now.
Director Anderson?
Director Cameron, how did you feel about just kind of a regular review of the data we're collecting and how we feel that is working, and would we add, would we subtract in terms of the data that is actually presented to the board? I think part of this is implementing a new process where we're taking in different kinds of information. Some over time we might perceive to be very helpful. Some of it we might not perceive to be very helpful. Some, it might be that the administration comes to us and says, you guys forgot about these 5 things. And so I don't know that we want to do that on a monthly basis, but like maybe in these quarterly reports, it's like, how do we feel about the information that is coming to us, and would we add or subtract anything? And I also think that I think you and I have both expressed we haven't had much time to consume this, and so in our next board meeting, if we felt we wanted to add more things in the moment, we could bring it up in the next board meeting.
Any other discussion before we vote on the Second Amendment? All right, there being none, there being a first and a second on the motion to add to the original motion these additional 6 items to the data dashboard. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the amendment passes.
Can I make a motion?
You can make an amendment to the motion, because I think we're still
Oh,
on
yeah,
the
can I make an
motion.
amendment to the motion? I'd like
Yes.
to add some more metrics.
To academics or to other
Yeah, to academics.
Okay.
I mean, we haven't even defined what that really means, right? So that's a whole conversation.
Go for it.
But I want to know our early childhood programming involvement rate with entering kindergartners. I would like to know in subgroups for MCA and FastBridge, what are our measurements? Because we're already tracking that, right? So we might as well look at subgroup data and make sure that we're supporting all groups evenly and equally. And I'd like to know if our graduation rate is on target.
I apologize. I didn't hear this.
No, graduation rate. The second one, or
The third one.
graduation rate? Are we on target? What % of students are on target to graduate based on credits?
So that would be data we could get within a school year to understand how that informs the end of the school year result. Yeah.
And really, the second one, you're just asking for full information on FastBridge and MCA to be available on the dashboard, right?
I'm asking for the data to be disaggregated by subgroups.
I second that motion. Any discussion on it?
Can I get clarification on what do you mean by subgroups, as in like
Different
diversity
student
type?
populations, so looking at EL, looking at free and reduced lunch, looking at, I mean, there's many subgroups in the MCA, right, that you can sort on the MCA page.
Yep.
So I want to make sure we're tracking that, not just comprehensive.
So-
Sure. Yeah,
Can I,
As a drop-down.
sure.
can I suggest, well, not to suggest, is that something that one would ask at a subsequent meeting if that is presented? Because if you're looking at the district as a whole and you see a metric and a score, is that going to make you feel, not you, but does that tell the story that your district's doing well? If we add additional metrics like the subgroups, while we can get into the weeds, is that really kind of like, hey, this number doesn't look right. We need a deep dive. Show me the next layer down. I don't know if we want to show all of those filtering options on the primary page of an executive dashboard. That
But it
would
shows
be
it
my
on-
hesitation.
It shows it on the MCA page anyway, so why wouldn't we be straightforward
If,
and also, yeah, you can sort by all these subgroups by grade.
When I go to the MCA page, I just see kind of like a math reading
No, you can
science.
sort by 20 different subgroups.
Agreed.
Or, I don't know, some number, a lot.
yeah, if we're going to track, if we're going to track with the district goals on the ESSER requirements too, they do specifically address subgroups and making sure that no subgroup is below 85%. So, that's why I'd be supportive of that metric as well.
Okay, that's fine.
Any further discussion on that amendment? All right, all in favor of adding early childhood and, correct me if I'm misstating this, Amber, early childhood involvement rate entering kindergarten, further MCA and Fast Bridge data desegregating the information by subgroups, and metrics on progress toward graduation, meeting graduation requirements.
I like that one, because then you start to see the trend if it goes down, you're like, or
Right.
up, or
All right.
down.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, it's approved. Okay.
Can we do
Sweet.
finance?
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Let's
Let's go.
let's finish. Can we knock out academics? We rolled around and we didn't approve it last week. So I would move to come into alignment with the district's goals that have already been distributed concerning MCA reading and math assessment goals under the MCAs, consistent with the ESSA requirements.
You want to adjust the targets?
Sorry.
Is the-
Do we have a motion? Is that, so we,
I'm making the motion to come into alignment, essentially number 2 on our list that we discussed last week, but we never formally approved it.
so this is an amendment. This is another
Oh,
amendment.
sorry.
We still
You're
have a
right.
motion on the
Yeah,
table.
yeah. All right. Motion to approve the data dashboard with the now 12 items is still on the table. Is there any further discussion on that, or are we ready to vote? Director Thompson?
I would like to add additional metrics for finance, HR, operations, but I'll pause if there's consensus on the board to wrap up this category first, but it's up to you guys.
I would love to wrap up the category.
Let's
and-
wrap up, yeah, I agree. Let's wrap up this category.
Okay.
All right. All in favor of the motion?
Can I say, just to clarify again?
Yeah.
Because Brian answered the question, but the data dashboard is for whom?
The board.
Board- it's
Only
an
the board.
executive. It's an executive.
Only the board?
Yep.
Is that, I'm looking to you.
Yeah, we haven't given access to anybody. We don't even have access to all this information
Okay.
yet, so.
I just
yeah,
want to be
think there would-
careful we're not,
Yeah, I think there would have to be a further vote of the board to release the information.
okay.
So, which I'm not opposed to, but that's not on the table
Okay.
right now. All right. Back to the original motion as 3 times amended. All in favor of approving the implementation of the data dashboard to include the 12 enumerated categories and metrics or information, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's approved. Now jumping back to goals.
Can we finish the rest of the dashboard? There are some other metrics that I think we should capture, and then we'll come back to the goals. Because, I think it's important to know the rest of the metrics on the dashboard, so that we then have a holistic picture of what we view as a priority. While I agree, there's a high probability that academics is going to be the top 3 component, but there are other metrics that I think there's value in obtaining as well as reviewing as a board.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but I'd like to knock off a category if we can tonight.
I wouldn't, well, the challenge that I have is that we have yet to receive the baseline score of those 9 academic metrics. And while I don't have any issues approving what you want to say with the 90%, because it's a state mandating or a state law anyways, but it would be good to know, okay, is that reasonable at the end of this year? Because I would like to see where are we today with all the other metrics first.
But
That isn't the
yeah,
5
it's not
years.
90%. It's coming in alignment with the district's goals that they've already distributed, which would be over the next 5 years.
That's required.
Getting
No,
to
I
90%.
disagree because I haven't seen their metrics yet, because their metrics may not be high enough from what I feel we ought to be. Now,
What do
with
you
my
mean?
lens.
What do you mean?
So if the MCA, so if the fast bridge data is grade 3 75, and let's say their metric is 76, I'm like, no, I don't want 1 extra point. Like, let's go higher. And so without
Well, you're talking about the
seeing,
growth target.
but without seeing their targets,
So what you're saying is next, we need to now get copies of the Scott plans
Yes.
for every
I
building.
wanted to
so
see
that we
where our
know-
current
or
baseline
grade-
is.
Break it up by grade, probably.
Let me ask it differently then, Brian. Are you going to come up with numbers that are different than what the district has already distributed?
but if they come back with a number of like 0.5 or a 1, is that enough? I mean, we have an opportunity to set the stages. Here's where we want you to go
Well, they're already going to 90. They're just showing interim steps to get to 90.
to get to 90.
Yeah, so 90 is the end goal by 2030, but they've broken it down by school based on where the baseline is at the school and interim steps to get to 90.
So you want them to share that data?
Which,
Well, they
Before we
would.
approve
it.
They would.
that was established with that ESSA or whatever, right? Like, this didn't come out of thin air. This was
No,
established
all I'm
for
asking
our
is us to
district.
come into alignment with the
Yes.
district and what
I
they're
agree.
pushing.
And all I'm asking is that alignment the level that we want to expect as a board, or do we think it can be better? Because if you're creating your own metric for yourself, you're not going to give yourself a stretch goal. No one does that.
It's 90%. It is a stretch goal.
Well, I know it's 90%, but you're not going to get there overnight. So
Brian,
what is
it's-
the stretch
it's-
goal for year 1?
It depends at each school. It's different at each school level. But with the goal of getting to 90.
But I understand, excuse me, I understand what Brian's saying. If you set your own goal, you're going to set a goal that's very achievable, as opposed to somebody setting a goal for you. Oh, I'm sorry. But I'm understanding what Brian said. If you set your own goal, you're going to set something that's very achievable and maybe not another 10% of what you could have done, as opposed to someone else setting the goal for you. I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Director Cameron, and then Nicholson.
Thanks. One way I'm thinking about this to like align all of our conversations perhaps, and also align with our strategic plan as it currently exists, is we have we have 5 current district goals as articulated by the strategic plan, right? One is improve teaching and learning to increase student achievement. The next one is improve systems of support to better meet academic, behavioral, and social, emotional needs of our students. And then it goes, there's 3 other, right? And some relate more to Brian, to what you're saying about finances and HR stuff, right? I'm wondering, like, could those be the category? And then these metrics that we just identified with the dashboard exist under, right? Be like underneath these broader goals. And in that, for example, like the MCA one that we're talking about, we say by 2030, 90%. That's a 5-year goal, right? But then between now and then, there are smaller increments to get us up to that 90%. Like, I feel like that's how my brain wants to organize this, to say, like, we we already have district goals. So either we're adding more or we're supporting the ones that we have, and I think we are. But that would be my suggestion, like map these metrics with targets to our goals.
Well,
So I just want to correct something. So technically, the goals, and I spoke with Director Baker about this, the 2022 to 2023 goals were just for that year, according to Director Baker, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I mean, I think everything that we, as you said, everything on this list falls under one of those goals, right?
So the goals we have on our website are not, they're not like, so normally when you do a strategic plan, you have goals, right? That are part of the plan. Are we saying that's not true?
We haven't updated it since.
They haven't been updated.
but we're not due for an update
Yeah, you
until
don't
this fall.
update those annually.
It
You
says
update-
2022
But
to
those goals don't have any
2023
metrics associated. Like, those, like, how do you know
Yeah,
you're doing
that's what I
well?
want to do, Brian. I want to
Yes.
map these metrics with targets to the goals.
I think we.
So what I'm hearing is
Hold on,
that.
hold on a second, hold on.
I think what you're, I think 100% alignment with kind of what you're saying, that our goals, once we kind of establish them, will map to all of these types of broad statements, but we haven't put anything in terms of specific targets, time-bound, anything that's going to make it measurable so that we can actually say we achieved improving Tier 1 instruction. Like, we haven't done any of that yet. We're saying these are metrics we want to look at, and one, we don't have the baseline. Two, we haven't actually set a goal for anything. The question that I think Matt was bringing up about getting us in alignment with the district's goals was that the district already rolled them out to the buildings. So kind of two separate things here. They already kind of took a step and said, here's your baseline, here's where you guys were, we want you to make a 2-point improvement or whatever. And I get you're saying you don't know if that's stretch or not, or is that reasonable or too easy or whatever. But I will say, if they made a goal to make improvements at every building, and they already rolled that out, and we don't have a baseline anyway, at this point in time, that's where I agree with getting on board with what they've done and saying we support it and help figure out what are our gaps now for them to make this improvement over the course of 25, 26. And if they miss it, then we can start to look at root cause analysis. Why? What did we miss? Was it, we didn't have the resources, we didn't have this, or we didn't have X, Y, or Z, or whatever. And we can say this building made it, this building didn't. What's the difference? But until we actually have some kind of a baseline to go off of, we're shooting in the dark. It's.
But we do have.
So that's what I like about aligning with where they're at.
But don't we have the baseline? At least for the MCA goal. We know exactly how every school is performing.
Yeah, but we don't know our baseline for all the other metrics that we just agreed to.
Director Anderson.
Well, so I agree that I think a lot of these, I've been a little bit confused this whole time about what the board goals and the superintendent goals and the district, I feel like generally the district administration has been in charge of working with buildings to create those goals to move toward the broader targets that are more established by the board. And so that's led to me to be a little confused about all this, and I do think all of these things should align. The board goals, the superintendent goals, the district goals should all align with our strategic plan. And so perhaps one of the goals for our board is that we are moving into more metric-based analysis of how the broader goals are, that's a goal, that we don't feel like we have been getting comprehensive data presented to us. Maybe data has been presented to us, but we're wanting it presented in a different format. That's part of this is moving toward a metric-based analysis that we're then telling the superintendent, then that leads to a superintendent goal of how he can fulfill that direction. So that's just one example. But I agree, a lot of the nitty-gritty has already been launched, and this is what I mean of we kind of missed the boat here. And so how do we get consistent with the district about where we're going and make sure we're asking for the metrics we need to analyze and feel like they're moving in the right direction? or we as a district are moving in the right direction.
I,
Director Carbone.
I do think part of goal setting is not necessarily to mesh into what's occurring, because it appears that what's occurring isn't as successful as it could be. So I think what we need to do as a board is to create goals that create directions that hopefully increase student achievement. And I think that's, and when we're establishing goals here for metrics and dashboards and we're talking about hitting 90% by 2030, Carly, it is true. These goals come down to the superintendent, and then they cascade down into the schools, i.e. the principals who are coming up with, how do I do this? How do I get to that number? And that's their job. That's what they get paid for. So, go ahead, Brian.
I don't think we disagree. Go ahead.
I think instead of, and I agree, I don't want to work on language, right, and what words sound best. I feel like what I've heard from many of the board members, and I feel similarly, is I want to create a target. We want to create a target of 90% MCA. Done. We want to create a target of whatever the pass, I don't know what the number is for FastBridge. Someone have to tell me that, right? But that goes to the baseline question, but also what is the correct metric we name? That's how I want to think about this. I don't need to have a beautiful sentence. I just think you go, we want 80% of our entering kindergartners to have early childhood. We want, whatever it is. And so I would love to see that. And I think that's a format you've proposed before, Brian. I think that resonates. And I think we can call it under this category of academic excellence or whatever. But are people opposed just to naming targets for, and I'm not saying we can go through all of them right now because we may not know but I'm comfortable with the 90% to align with the district. I just think, I think creating this more in an Excel document format where we have the line item with the baseline, the target, and the 5-year goal would be amazing.
Yeah, that's what I want.
And I think I think that'd be way more straightforward than a written document, in my opinion.
And I don't think anybody's saying that's not appropriate. I think what we're saying is that every goal needs a metric, every goal needs a deadline.
That's exactly what I just said.
Well, that's what we've been saying for months.
Yeah.
Ever since we started the data analytics discussions.
I guess I've proposed a very similar system to what Director Thompson has proposed with exactly what you're saying, Paul, and it hasn't been, people haven't wanted to take that. So I'm confused. And I'm just iterating again.
What you're saying is exactly what this executive dashboard or executive report ought to be. It should be the metric, it should be a baseline, it should be your 25, 26 target, and then what might be a 3 or a 5 year future state target. And then maybe you add another column that says what strategic pillar does this align to, which could be one of those 4 core whatever's on our strategic dashboard, so that we know that it's aligned to that. So that we're 100% online. I think we're just different definitions and different wording, but that's what we want to get to. Show me the metric, show me the baseline, show me what we're going to do this year, what is the long-term target, and what pillar or core value does it belong to? But to respond to your question, I'm fine if the district has already created their goals, or let me rephrase it, has already created their targets for the year. I don't mind having them listed as our targets for this year, because I'm assuming those targets already have a baseline that they're using to get to those targets. But I would like to do a quick spot check to say, hey, I think we can do better. And again, I'm not going to have any credibility to say you need to increase this 3% more. But it would be interesting to know if we're really, if the goal is to increase a particular metric by 3% or I'm just making it 0.5%. I don't know. It just feels
none
like
of the goals are at 0.5%.
Right. I feel like
per
in
year.
previous meetings we've had conversations about QComp and then the metrics for QComp is not as of a stretch to obtain then, because they're setting their own goals. Now again, you've got district leadership sharing this is the goal that we want. So I'm in alignment to adopt them, but then as a board, we should have the right to adjust them.
Okay.
Director
Okay, I have
Anderson.
to comment. I feel like we should not be talking about Q comp in the way, like teachers should be setting goals that are reasonable, attainable, good for, I think the way we're talking, or what you just said suggests that they're not creating good goals. I have something else to say, but that caught me a little bit like, our teachers are working their butts off, and of course they want to get better. And so I want to be really careful how we kind of talk about that, if that makes sense. But I also just want to say, I don't think any one of us at this table doesn't want to see more data and doesn't agree with the data dashboard. I think where we have struggled to kind of come in alignment here is when we talk about putting resources toward this that then create challenges for other priorities in the district. So if what we're saying is this is all data that's attainable and it's something that Tracy and her team can put together, and we don't have to add positions. That's never been a problem, I don't think, with anybody at this table. I think when we were talking about adding positions that then take away possibilities for other things, like that's right. I want to just be careful how we talk about, everybody has been in favor of getting more data. It's just kind of the path to that, which we have needed this conversation, and to clarify that we're not putting more money toward this at this point. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's where the disagreement about the dashboards was. When we're creating positions, that takes away from other things.
I want to speak on that. I believe the district brought a resource on already to do that work. And so I'm assuming that resource would be readily available to say, this is the priority list from the board. Go get these metrics, bring it back to the board, let us review it, and go from there. Okay.
All right,
Cool.
I think
Can we go on to
one
next
point,
category?
let's just get a point of consensus here so we can bury this thing once and for all, please. Move to agree that our goal for the MCAs by 2030 is in alignment with the districts that they recently distributed, and we can check the numbers later, but to hit 90%, with interim assessment evaluations every year.
Is that the motion?
That is the motion.
I'll second it.
All right, there's a second. Any discussion? Brian?
How soon can we have this? Like at least this iterative draft? Are we looking at 2 months? Are we looking at 1 month? Like how?
Probably a day, because I think it's already been distributed.
Yeah. So this whole academic list of 9 metrics that we are wanting,
Oh, wait a minute.
plus the baseline.
Hold on. I'm talking about the ESSA goals for the pending motion.
For the pending. Got it.
Any other discussion on the pending motion? If there is none,
I have one more. I mean, I know it's the district's goals, but I don't have anything to see. I don't have anything that I'm just arbitrarily approving. Yes, go after this.
90% in 5 years.
Can we do 95% in 3 years, in 4 years? I mean, what's the level of effort to get there? Because 5 years from now, we've got 1,000 kids graduating every year. You've now missed out on 5,000 kids.
But we've been taking a percent the wrong way for a while. So if they're going to put the horsepower into going positive, even if it's 3%, I'm happy. I want the number to bump back up, not
And they have yet to
down
come
next year.
forward saying we need these resources to get to this extra 3%.
Correct.
If we can say, all right, if they come back and say, I can do it in 3 years, but I need this level of investment, isn't that something we should consider?
There's a first and a second. Any more discussion on the motion?
I think,
That's
yeah, sorry.
Director Cameron?
If we move forward with this 90, we would be the highest performing district in the state. No other school district is anywhere near 90%. I think that's touchdown, and I think it's a moment of reflection. When Orono and Minnetonka are not hitting anywhere near these numbers, this is going to be a huge effort. And that's where I'm okay passing this goal if this is what the superintendent is asking. However, I want to resource this because I know we can't do this the way we're currently resourced. And we only have finite resources, right? So in order to accomplish 90%, we need, as a board, to be ready to support whatever is asked to get to that number. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has said we wouldn't do everything we could to help. I mean, I think we need to be really clear about that, other than rob a bank.
Any other discussion on the motion? All right. All in favor, there being a first and a second, all in favor of aligning our district goals set by the board with the ESSA goals and interim steps that have been set by the district, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's approved.
Can we add finance metrics? I only have 3.
I would have one to add there.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Can I would like some time to think about that, especially in light of what I just said. I think I would like to be thoughtful on how our board, how the district finances can be designed in a way to support the 90% goals. I don't have enough information from the school district to do that. And maybe that is the goal, that we put the resources where the district says we need them. I mean, but I don't think we build our reserves and not talk about how we're going to also allocate resources.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to put a motion in to say those reserves need to be at a certain number. What I would like to put a motion is to say I want to capture the percent of our unassigned fund balance on the executive dashboard. I want to put the number of students that we have on the executive dashboard. So when we get that dashboard and those baselines, we will have further conversation on if we want to increase that and how does that increase then impact the existing allocation of resources and funding that we have. But for now, we don't have anything else that says how we're doing as a school, how we're doing as a business, other than those 9 academic metrics right now. That's where I'm at.
I guess I would like to push back a little bit. I mean, we know that the fund balance is growing, right? So we get this quarterly update, if not monthly, on how our budget is doing. So it's not like we have no clue how we're doing financially.
Yeah, and technically we have a board policy. I mean, that says we're shooting for 10. I think we're at 7.3 or something like that.
Right, but if you didn't know the board policy, the next board that comes in, or the next board member that comes in, again, how do they see that the school district is doing well? They're not going to go ask the finance guy because they may not know what's our unassigned fund balance at. I mean, so again, how do we create an executive dashboard so that anyone can come in and say, you guys are doing well. Your fund balance looks healthy. Your academic scores look great. Your HR staff satisfaction survey seems to be top notch at 92%. Like that's the mindset we've got to think about, because if you're the board, that's your job. Like that's how we govern if our business or our organization is doing well. And so I'm great. It's great that we got the first 9 academic metrics done, but finance, HR, operations, and student engagement are the next bulk of things to consider. But I'll pause here if there's a desire from the board that we use the next board session to add finance and HR and operations.
Are we, point of clarification, are we still on academics? I
Yeah,
thought-
there's
That's passed.
no pending motion, so we're done with that motion.
All right,
For
but,
the MCA.
but were there other academic goals that we were looking at?
No, we added some, we got Amber's added.
And everybody's good with?
We're good for
Well,
now.
we added the metrics. So we added the metrics. There's no
We added the
goals
metrics.
specific to
Yeah.
those metrics. Yeah.
I would like
Yeah.
to make goals based on the baseline metrics. I just don't think can we expect that next month, the next month after?
We should do that at our next board meeting
I-
if the dashboard's available, because I think the faster we get that dashboard and that baseline, the faster we can then decide where do we want these targets to be, and that becomes the goal for 25-26.
But
I-
at this point, we do not know how long it will take to get this dashboard fully developed. And so that is, I know, I'm like, oh my God. But this is where I'm a little confused about, like, what is our plan for tonight? I feel like it's a little bit of a too big of a plan to say we're going to approve all this and we're going to make any decisions on board goals, which I still agree with Amber that we haven't fully reviewed everything to kind of
And we can,
establish the goals. But, so if we ground the goal, so perhaps a plan would be to establish tonight what's going to be on the dashboard at a preliminary plan for that we can edit. And then come back after we have gotten the data, which we'll put to the team to see how long, and then come back and center our targets around that. And that would be our goals. But,
So point of clarification again?
yes.
Are we now, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to track this. Are we now talking about finance? Did we just move to finance?
No.
And Brian's,
I am in alignment with Director Anderson's approach, where let's focus on what do you want on your executive report, and then we'll come back and establish goals. And there will be instances where there will be initiatives that are not part of goals. As an example, plan for 7th period in high school. That's not a metric. That is an initiative.
Initiative.
Right? The middle school wheel model, is it effective? That is an initiative. That's not a metric. So I would like us to go through the 4 buckets of work or work streams, the academics, the finance, HR, operations, so that we as a board feel comfortable that we have some sort of draft right now so that we can move forward.
How about
Go ahead.
What about a metric we don't have?
That's what
now?
I was going to say.
So, for instance, and I know this has come up at board meetings before, MCAs and FastBridge, MCA specifically is very much a lagging indicator. I mean, by the time you get the MCA results, I mean, it's August, and they take the test in May, So it's not like they're actionable, right? FastBridge is better, but it's not, it's 3 times a year. It's not every grade. And I think this would be more of an initiative. I think some of the data is there, and I discussed this with Emily a little bit, at least at the elementary level. Like, how are the kids doing? How are our students doing on the curriculum that we're teaching them? Like, we don't have that data available. Because think about FastBridge and MCA. MCAs are not aligned completely with our curriculum. They're just not. We can see that through the MCA data and the benchmarks that we're missing across the board. So if we're trying to show or establish, how well are our students performing, but we're not really tracking how they're doing on the curriculum, well, there's a consistency of curriculum question too. I think we're missing out on the truly actionable data.
There is you do get on the elementary report card things, like whether they're meeting benchmarks or below benchmark. What is the various meet?
On FastBridge, you mean?
No, on the elementary, they get report cards that are teacher ratings of how they're doing.
Yeah.
That could be
So I
something
think
we can monitor.
Elementary is something where that data is available. I'm not so sure about secondary.
That'd be more
which-
GPA, which we're,
Yeah, or performance, a common assessment. For instance, if curriculum is consistent across the grade levels, we could have common assessments that we're pulling out of that curriculum to show how the students are performing. For instance, we have math is the #1 failed class in middle school and high school. It's like, well, why, right? And we can't really tell by looking at the FastBridge and MCA data right now, or even tracking those students in order to do interventions.
You have a
and
course
properly
failure
assess.
rate now.
What's that?
You have a course failure rate in your academic dashboard right now,
You
or
would.
that you just approved. So that
Yeah.
could get you that number, or what class and what courses. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Director Cameron.
I'm wondering, Emily, and you may not be the right person, so just say that if you're not. I'm wondering if there's any work happening in MTSS that might inform kind of what you're asking for, Matt. I know that it could be designed in a way, and I feel like I've had discussions with Nicole Adams about this, where you're tracking students who are having a rough time for intervention support. So could that correlate with what you're asking, Matt?
Yeah, definitely. But sorry, you can go ahead and I'll jump in.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of conversations as we've moved the MTSS work forward over the past year around how do we track specifically? So it's as you know, a very different environment in the elementary than in the secondary. At the elementary, we have standards-based grading. As Director Anderson said, you can see based on standard how students are performing. We're doing some focus around that this year to clean some of that up and improve our reporting structures around that. We don't have those mechanisms at the high school, so we'd really have to figure out what is it that we want to build? What kind of data do we want to be able to access? And then how do we build those systems? And then what do we have currently that we could look at while we're doing that, so that we have some sort of mechanism? And we can look at things like somebody mentioned, like course failures, or are they on track for graduation? Those types of things would inform that a little bit. But I think that there's definitely more work to do to get to the level of specificity I think we need and we want in order to create and implement the proper intervention structure. So it's a yes and.
Yeah, I feel like in my discussions with Nicole Adams about this too, like, I don't know if, and this goes back to your comment, Carly, if we have the staffing at the high school level and maybe middle, but for sure high school, who is able to track robust data. So like, I know there are some high schools in our conference who, if a kid misses two classes in a week, so not the day, but a class, they're getting flagged for intervention. We don't, but they have a 1.0 working on this for their high school, for example, and we just don't have that kind of resource, right? So I'm wondering, like, if we had better data support, could we catch challenging situations earlier, rather than waiting for a or a failing grade, right, at the end of a course?
Brett, do you have a question?
Well, to your point on common assessment across the board, if our curriculum's consistent and we have similar quizzes, similar tests being taken, at least K through 5, I mean, that information ends up, well, I don't know if K through 5, do you see test scores for the kids? Do you? I see the report card, but I'm trying to think of, like, I'm trying to remember that. No, not that. I'm talking like if we took a math test in class, right? I mean, that information ends up in Schoology, or I forget what we use.
But they get it like a meets or they get like
what's
a
that?
meets or exceeds, or they don't get a grade or anything. They get a letter in the elementary.
Right, but in
FastBread
terms
should be-
of tracking, like, whether or not they're meeting expectation periodically throughout the year, if that's in a digital system, don't we have some of that we just need to figure out how to visualize a little bit better? I mean, that's it. If curriculum is consistent and everybody's getting a similar quiz, a similar test at the same grade for whatever subject, I mean, we just need to get that information.
Yeah, and I think.
But I think that's what FastBridge does. That gives you this.
Which is a universal screener.
Yeah,
it's
a
not the
universal
same.
screener. And Emily, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, because I have 2 middle schoolers, and I can see their quiz scores. The challenge is if all teachers across 7th grade or 8th grade are not using the same, formative assessments, then the data is going to be hard to interpret and compare to one another. Correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's hard to compare if they're not being assessed on a similar assessment. We do, however, that said, that what you're talking about is really, we're talking about down to the teacher classroom course level, and that's the work that is and should be occurring in the PLCs. So, like, for example, when I was teaching, and my colleague and I, who taught the same course, we would give the same assessment, and then when we'd have our PLC time, we'd look at that and say, I would say, wow, your kids did really, really well in this particular area. Mine maybe didn't, or vice versa. And then we would talk about strategies and share ideas and what do we need to reteach? Did most kids get it? Is it just a few kids? So that's really sort of the day-to-day work that the teachers are doing in the classroom at all levels. It's just is documented a little bit differently. So when we're talking about getting to that level, we're talking about literally going into every single teacher's grade book and looking at every single assessment that we say, okay, if these are the common assessments, we would be pulling that data and somehow, we're not set up to do that, I guess is the point. We'd have to figure out what is it that we want to accomplish, what do we want to glean from the data, and then what's the best data to be able to answer the questions we want to answer.
Matt, what are you trying to solve, or what do you want to know?
Yeah, let me petition you guys for this, and I don't have it worded as a goal, specifically. I want to be able to show how our students are doing, right? I don't think MCAs and FastBridge are necessarily a great representation on how they're doing based on what the teachers are teaching them, because it assumes complete alignment, with the state standards in those tests. If we can see more in live fashion how our students are doing on the curriculum that we're teaching them, we can better track interventions. We talk about wanting to go back to the public and ask for more funding on levies. I mean, what better of an opportunity if you can say, hey, we've used this resource in these instances and it's allowed kids to improve their performance by X percentage.
Does the GPA distribution and course failure rate get you to that metric, or to get you to that answer?
It's not if the baseline data is not consistent, right? Not if the assessments that you're using, because again, it may be in elementary school, right? But secondary, where the courses are different, they might be using different resources or curriculum altogether, then how do you compare it, right? So if there's no common, standards-based assessment at the grade level or at the classroom level, I mean, there's also other benefits too, because it helps us allocate resources, and it sounds like we're doing this at the PLC level already. Amongst classrooms, maybe one teacher is just crushing it, right, and has amazing test scores. Well, let's replicate what she's doing, across the grade level, right, or across buildings. If she has a special way of teaching something, why wouldn't we want to replicate it? You can only do that, though, if you have consistency in curriculum and pacing is similar. But yeah, again, it's getting down to, a lot of the detail of the data. But again, I think if we're going to be going back to, our stakeholders asking for more money, which I think people are proposing, we've got to prove that we deserve it and that we're going to use it to actually improve academic outcomes. And if we have the data, we can justify it. This might be a longer discussion, but it's just, yeah.
I mean, I appreciate what you're saying. I think I would be interested in learning from district staff how that might look different than FastBridge, because, and I hear what you said about FastBridge, and this is a very anecdotal thing, and I realize that, but from my family's experience, I know that intervention was identified immediately with FastBridge, and then intervention happened, and then regular, like every other day, assessments happened to assess if the intervention was working right, and then FastBridge is used again next time to see if we're on track. So I do feel like that's a great tool that our district is using. Whether or not we need additional, I don't know, but I've seen that work really well.
Mm-hmm. So Matt, what I think I'm hearing you say is curriculum consistency across the grade, curriculum mapping, whatever you want to phrase it, pacing, so people are staying pretty close to the same speed in learning the different subject matter. And then the third thing I think I'm hearing you mention is there a way to get more of a finger on the pulse so that we can learn if it's dipping or level or going up, as opposed to waiting until the end of the year or quarter or whatever when it's already done and we've lost this amount of time. I think that's what you're asking for. And are you asking that that's wrapped into a goal?
Yeah, it's just articulating it. I'm not exactly sure what our capabilities are right now. Again, it's different at the elementary level than I think at the secondary.
Maybe it's a
and what that would
metric.
entail.
Maybe it's a metric that's specifically reading and specifically math. So forget about all the other classes for a moment. Like if you are looking for how our students are doing in their current curriculum of reading, and maybe GPA then is an appropriate metric for 6th grade through 12. Because then I'm assuming, obviously there's some honors classes and some that take AP classes that get an extra 1.2 weighted GPA, but it's one of those where you could do reading, math, a GPA score from grade 6 through 12.
Yeah, I would say also, having that classroom level data will help us assess, as Michael would say, the fidelity of our curriculum as well. Because if our kids are doing great on the curriculum and then not doing so hot on the MCAs and the Fast Bridge, that
data-
would be an indication that, hey, maybe they're not in alignment, or maybe it's not rigorous enough, because they could be acing their class.
Yep.
But maybe it's just
It's not just
unusually easy class and not aligned with
that data
the
is in
state
campus
standards.
infinite. I mean, I get reports every time a homework assignment is completed for my son. And so it's one of those where at the end of every month, you can see what's the average GPA in reading for South and North and all the other various grades. And you'll be able to differentiate which building has a higher GPA than everybody else, because the homework assignments that they are turning in are either getting 90s or 100, but then you see their Fast Bridge and MCA data that might be skewed or not in par with their GPA that they're getting. I don't want to know how many classes, how many homework assignments are being completed, but to get to where you're getting to, that might be the path. I don't know.
You're looking at kind of a leading indicator, though. So we're talking about MCA being a significant lagging indicator. Fastbridge being 3 times a year is kind of a lagging indicator. And then you need a leading indicator being how are we doing day to day, which again drives to the classroom level metric that you're kind of talking about. But you're trying to figure out, are we on pace? So again, I don't know what that metric should be or how we should build that or who should build it, but I think that's what you're asking for.
Dr. Anderson.
I do agree with trying to understand how students are doing as they go along, because if we get to the metrics that are more test-based, that are quarterly or end of year, it feels too late sometimes. I do think this should be kind of driven by our district in terms of how we look at, like, going to the experts to understand how we should look at this, because one thing I'm just thinking of is, I think we can all think about teachers we've had who are harder graders or easier graders, and what I don't want to do is shift anything in the district to have teachers feel pressured that they have to be grading in a certain way to show that they're, you know what I mean? Like, I would look to our administration to try to help us understand what would be the best way to kind of look at performance across the year, not just with these. Does that make sense?
I guess I'm missing it, because wouldn't it be, you'd see performance across the year?
I'm just thinking, like, for instance, when obviously certain tests you can't fudge, right? And not that I think teachers want to see progress in students. That's what they want. But I don't want to create a culture of so much pressure that teachers are feeling they're being compared to one another or really evaluated to that level that it makes any sort of cultural shift. So overall, what I'm saying is it is probably the case that our principals or other administration would have some ideas about what's the best way to look at progress across the year, as opposed to us coming up with that.
And it sounds like they are, right? But we're just not, we don't have access to that
Right,
data.
so that's what I mean, like,
Yeah.
let them tell us what they think would be a reasonable thing to bring to us.
But again, I think that would be a metric on the dashboard,
Yeah.
right? Because
So
I
you want
think that's fine.
a leading indicator
yeah.
that can be tracked monthly, and we are looking for the district to come back with a proposal.
Or maybe not even month, maybe it would be, I think they should come with a proposal. What is a reasonable amount of time, quarterly or monthly or
It depends on the
whatever it be?
curriculum, right? It's going to be
Right.
different. But if you're going math and reading or literacy, yeah. Because what I don't want to get to is, all right, we've hit another year, passed another year, and we've missed our mark on MCAs. And then we're like, what happened? And we're like, I don't know. Well, let's try this.
But it
right?
would be good to know if they're killing reading and math GPA and they're getting 4.0, but yet it doesn't reflect in the other, the assessments.
Because you could advertise that. Like, look, the MCAs may say one thing, but this is how our students are actually performing, right?
Yeah.
And we can work if we want to, adjust and tweak and supplement the curriculum to align better with the MCAs. But otherwise, everyone's thinking that our students are hitting, only 60% of them are passing their math courses, based on the MCA scores. Sorry, Amber.
I think this is kind of related to this, and it's a question for Emily. I passed the 90%, right, proficiency on the assessment for MCAs. I'm still, and I mentioned this at last meeting, concerned that in order to hit that, we will switch to a teach the test model. Because I don't know of any other districts that's able to do this, right? So how are we going to ensure that our curriculum just doesn't become testing methods, MCA testing success, which you can do and you can get good scores, right? So, but that doesn't mean a student is able to think and learn. How do we balance that?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I think we do recognize and acknowledge that our kids are gifted in many different ways, and that one metric in and of itself doesn't tell a complete story of a district or of a student, for that matter. And so we want to make sure that we are preserving opportunities for students to engage in learning in a wide variety of ways. I think that's always been a priority for us. That's actually in our MTSS framework. And so I think we would really need to lean on that. I think the other thing is getting focused on, the focus should not be on the test. The focus should be around the standards. And so what are the best ways for us to be able to engage students in the standards at the appropriate level of rigor, that then because no matter how much, you can't cram a student for 3 weeks or 2 months or 3 months and then expect them to even perform well on a test. It just doesn't actually work that way. So I think clarity for the teachers around what that looks like, sounds like, and feels like in terms of their instruction. And we've been focusing our district goals for the past last year was really around Tier 1 and how do we strengthen our day-to-day instruction. And I think that will remain a focus for us for next year. And that gives us an opportunity to help and support people in engaging with teaching the standards and not teaching the rote memorization, just here's a lot of test prep. I mean, we wouldn't support that as a learning strategy because that doesn't actually help students learn and grow. It might help them produce better on certain aspects of a test, but that isn't. We want them to be learning. We want them to be growing. We want them to be able to take the knowledge and skills that they have learned and actually do something with them other than fill out a bubble sheet, right? So it's making sure that we remain standards focused and that there's clarity around the level of rigor that's expected of those standards in terms of our instruction and our assessment.
And this is where maybe I feel strongly that when we get this dashboard, I want to compare MCA with FastBridge to make sure that our MCA, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on our schools, on our administrators, and our teachers to get to this 90%, right? I mean, it just is. And FastBridge should model the success. And if it's not, I think the board and the school district should have a conversation about, is our curriculum about doing well on one test, or is it a curriculum that is about learning?
Director Carbone.
Yeah, I'm going to come from left field on this about, how do we get to 90% in 5 years? Some of you may be familiar with Alpha schools. They're private schools. I think there are 8 of them across the nation. I called the one in Austin, Texas. And their model is for 2 hours a day, have AI tutorials in classrooms so that each kid is met exactly the level they're at and then incrementally taught from there. And they have one teacher for 40 students that are doing this AI modeling. To me, that's innovative. Yeah, I know it costs money, but my point is, my whole point in saying this is, are we thinking innovatively on how to get there? And that's not necessarily our job. It's the job of the people out in these buildings to come up with innovation and strategies to get there. So I guess what I'm saying is, I just think we've got to, I just think we've got to open up our Pandora's box and see if there are different things we can do. And if we want to run, one more comment, if we want to run a test model of AI tutorials in one of the middle schools, which, if I remember correctly, back in February when I saw FastBridge, math and reading were like 59 to 62%. Is that a bad idea? I'm just asking a rhetorical question. I know that there are some parents who privately tie into AI tutorials so their kids can advance themselves or move past areas that they're really struggling with. And from what I'm told from some of these parents, it works really well. So if we're trying to get to 90% and everybody's saying, oh my gosh, that might be impossible, there are places around the country that are doing it, and they're in the top 1 or 2% of the nation as far as testing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree that it's definitely one of those additional resources, because the answer isn't just try harder or work harder, right, for the teachers. It's going to be, yeah. Sorry, Brian.
Hey, Director Carbone, I think you are right that while we are literally seeing the advancement of AI, I mean, I've got notes where there's a high school senior who's doing some social media project for her for a company that she's at, and she's putting together videos using AI, putting into Canva, using ChatGPT to kind of create a social media campaign. Like, there are things that these kids are doing right now that they're not learning in the classroom. And so this is a much larger conversation we need to have, where we've got to ask ourselves, how do we position our kids to be prepared for the future? And that might be in an initiative. But when we set these targets, we need to be looking to the administration to come back to us and say, we only have so much money. Here's alternative paths that we can consider. While we can provide guidance and say, have you looked at the AI path? We also need to let them come back to the table. Like, this is how we get to the 90. And this is how much money that we're going to need. And I echo Director Cameron's comment around, are we testing to the benchmark? I mean, are we going to have non-thinkers and they're going to be like, this is how you test this exam? I get that. And I think we're going to run into that scenario in any exams that you take or any programs that you take. I mean, I'm looking at the benchmarks right now for third grade, Math 3 benchmark 3.1.2.1. Like, this is the description. Add and subtract multi-digit numbers, use efficient and generalizable procedures based on knowledge of place value, including standard algorithms. So that's the benchmark. Now, there might be a lot more to it, which I don't know how a teacher would decipher that and figure out what the lesson plan needs to be so that a third grade math student would know how to solve that. Because it might be hard to teach to the benchmark. I mean, to test to the benchmark, because the benchmark might be so ambiguous. We don't really know. I don't know. So I'll defer to them. But I do echo your comment around, are we going to set a path where our students are just figuring out how to take the exam, or our teachers teach this is how you take the exam? I don't know. And then the last thing, go ahead.
Just related to what you said, for both you and Carly, actually, in your past 2.5 years on the board?
On what?
2.5 years on the board, right?
Yeah.
More than that.
Has the district come to you and said, like, hey, we want to do this academic initiative, we need more money?
No. Well, outside of the levies, saying that we need this levy for XYZ, but in regards to, we want to launch this new initiative and it's going to cost XYZ money, like, here's a proposal. I don't believe I've seen anything like that.
I mean, I think I would support any sort of, I think there's chances, there are going to be many chances for people in our district to be innovative and creative in how we get there. And I think as Director Cameron pointed out earlier, like we as a board need to be ready for a proposal that is going to come to us that is going to ask for more resources. And that can be, I think the board also, with regard to this metric and what we are looking at, this has to be multifaceted in terms of how we get to 90%. Like, it's not just about curriculum, it's also about the school culture, and it's also about, so it's many things that I think we have to be thinking of. So levies have come to us with not necessarily that exact directive, but like adding counselors in our schools is helping improve, right, our direction in terms of graduation rate and getting, those kinds of things. So or that's the aim, is that creating these positions are helping our students make good decisions, next step.
Hopefully.
Type things. Hopefully, that's the goal, right? So it hasn't come. I trust that people will have teachers who come forward, or the union comes forward with innovative ideas, and we need to be ready to support that.
Brian?
So I want to just make sure we tie up your leading indicator question. So I think another metric we want to add to the academic executive report is what leading indicator metric can the district come forward with as a proposal, and then share with us the cadence of when that report or when that data gets refreshed, or how real time that is. And so I think that closes that section out, or the academic work stream, or the academic section of the executive dashboard. Good. Are we good with that? Do we need to make a motion is what I'm asking? Or do you want to make a motion for next
motion
week?
to add it to the data dashboard? Figuring out what the leading indicator would be,
Yeah.
or proposing a leading indicator.
All right.
Yeah, for each grade. Each.
Elementary and secondary, or primary, secondary levels.
Do we want to set a working session for the remaining sections from finance, HR, operations, and potentially student government? I mean, not government, but student engagement? Because again, that ought to lead to your executive dashboard report, where we can be able to glance and say, we think our school is doing well. That will allow us to get to targets faster, and that will allow us to then get to what additional initiatives or initiatives we want to do beyond what's on the dashboard.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously going to have to come back because we have to get to some other matters tonight. But so let's wrap this last indicator up then. I would move to add to the data dashboard a recommended leading indicator that will be provided by the district in the next couple of months.
Next week.
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? There being a second.
I don't think it needs to be in the next couple of months. It should be part of the proposal that gets brought forward, but that would be my additional comment.
Yeah, I guess my concern is for secondary, it might not exist right now, right? So there might be some legwork that would need to go into that. So, and they can notify us of that. Because again,
Metric is one thing, though. We're talking about defining the metric versus actually being able to execute on the metric.
Yeah.
You can't execute on the metric right now in secondary. That's one thing. Sorry. Being able to execute on the metric is one thing, but having a metric that says, this is what we're gonna look at is one thing. Whether or not we have the data, can have the data, or if that's something even readily available or completely different between primary, secondary, may be separate discussion. But, I mean, I think they could come up with something in the next month.
if there's no further discussion, there being a first and a second, all those in favor of adding the
Development of
leading
a proposal for a
indicator
leading indicator.
aspect to the data dashboard, with the district coming back to us with a proposal for what that would be. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. It is approved. Are we good for tonight? All right. We have a couple more things, just open session business before we go into closed session. Earlier today, 4 hours ago, the board participated in a closed session and were presented with settlement proposals by our district council to resolve 2 lawsuits. So I would entertain a motion to approve the actions discussed in closed session, which was held at 5 p.m. today. Those are MDHR file number 73690 and MDAHR file number 73424. 73690, just for the public's knowledge, is a resolution of a claim. It's a 3-party settlement with a student, and the MDHR, the cash payment is going to be funded by insurance. It's covered by insurance. No admission of wrongdoing. The district's out-of-pocket cost is $2,000 for a payment of a fine. And then the second one, MDHR file number 73424, is just a settlement between the district and the MDHR. Again, no admission of wrongdoing, and the district is paying a $1,000 fine. So I'd entertain a motion to approve both of those settlements. All right, there's a motion by Director Cameron. Is there a second? A second by Director Nicholson.
Can I just clarify something?
You can.
Oh, are you opening for
No,
discussion?
go for it.
Do we have to approve these separately? We can approve them in a, like,
Sure.
I'm wondering if we have to vote on them separately. Yeah, we don't.
I don't know that we necessarily need
Okay.
to. Yeah, unless somebody wants to.
She said no. Okay.
All right, if there's any further discussion on those? If there's none, all in favor of approval of the settlements, both for MDHR file number 73690 and MDHR file number 73424, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those settlements are approved. All right. What's that? The board is going to go into closed session, and so I'll just move. I'm going to move into closed session pursuant to State Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3B to engage in negotiation discussions. I just want to note for the public that we will ask everyone to leave the room. We will come back into open session afterwards to adjourn the meeting, but the discussions will be just with the board members and specific staff. So the motion is to go into closed session under Minnesota Statute State Statute Section 13D.05. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And